All right. We are live. YouTube, Mr. Hallman, Bradley Hallman.
Yeah.
What's going on tonight?
Well, I just got back from having dinner with the family, and they've all taken off next door, and I've got me and my dog sitting here in the office talking to you.
Nice.
No.
And so, how many people call you Bradley versus calling you Brad? Like, Bradley feels super official. Like,
I started using that name, honestly, kind of later in life, I guess, whenever through Bassmaster, just because that's what it signed up through on my W-9, I guess. I don't know, but it kind of stuck, and then Bradley Stringer was there at the same time, so it was just Bradley, and I just kind of rolled with it. I didn't care because everybody, that I'd known. So it's kind of funny now. So like if somebody calls me and they call me Brad, I know it's somebody that I've known for a long time, and it's probably not fishing related. But if they call me Bradley, then it usually is fishing related. But here lately, it's just been Hallman. Like everybody calls me Hallman.
Yeah, nice. Well, Darius says the sound and video is good, so that's awesome.
Good.
Let's talk about the most important thing. How about those Sooners?
Dude, that's a big deal for me. Big Sooner fans here. Starting the season off 0-2, dude. If we can win a Big 12 championship, we're good with that. Like I didn't care anything about the natty or playing in that playoff deal. We wouldn't make it past game one. So it's been a good season. I don't really care what happens at this point. We've got a nice bowl game against Florida, but between kids that opt out and decide not to play, and kids transferring in the transfer portal, and both teams are probably going to be somewhat of a shell of what they should be. And it's a COVID year too. So
for sure. Nice. And you said, didn't you say you headed down to the championship?
Yeah, we're season ticket holders, and they gave us the option at the beginning of this year if you wanted season tickets because of COVID. They were only going to fill the Oklahoma Stadium 25% capacity, which is basically what they've done throughout a lot of the country. And my wife was like, "Hell yeah, we're getting our tickets!" So we took all the kids and we went and all year. And then whenever the Big 12 championship game came up, we had the opportunity to get those too. So my wife and I went down there to that and kind of got some time away for kids for a couple of days last weekend.
That's awesome. Break it up a little bit. That's awesome. Yeah, the Gophers. I'm not a huge college football guy, but they're kind of a disappointment after their big season last year and their win over Auburn. They kind of came back to earth. So I guess let's maybe just talk a little bit about for those of you who don't know. I mean, Brad's background. He's fished at the top level or near the top level or around the top level for probably a couple of decades now. I mean, you were on the Elite Series for a while. You fished FLW. I mean, you've kind of done it all. I mean, and you've had some tour level wins on FLW. Quite a few regional wins on that AAA level for sure. So if you guys don't know Brad, I mean that's kind of his background in a nutshell. You can kind of see some of the big hardware behind him there. So he's got a ton of experience. Last year, you kind of made up your mind to fish all 8 opens in an attempt to requalify for the elites and try to fish for blue trophies again. Maybe just talk about like what led you to that decision. I know you talk about this a lot in detail, but maybe kind of in a nutshell, what led you to want to do that again, and like kind of got where you kind of got back to wanting to do that again, and then like how last year went, I guess.
Obviously I was at FLW at the time. I'd spent 6 years at the Elite Series, and then I had 3 or 4 years that I'd taken off, and spent the last 4 years at the FLW Tour, and had some success there, and I was enjoying myself and having a good time. I liked the layout. It was a friendly, family-friendly atmosphere and stuff. But anyway, all that changed. I mean, MLF came in, bought FLW. They had their system set up. It was going to be a 2-year system, and the qualifications to qualify for the MLF. And the format just didn't really – I never was crazy about it. And I'd been away from bass, and like I say, I'd had some success over there, and I kind of just had some things to think about. And, man, truthfully, at my age, as long as I've been doing this, you kind of got to have some drive, right? Like it's not like when you're 25 years old and you're just ready to jump out of the damn truck and go get in the boat every single day, no matter if it's raining or snowing, sleet, and hailing, So you got to want to do it. And like I say, I was fortunate enough to won a couple of black trophies over there on the FLW Tour, and I don't have any blue ones. And that Bassmaster Classic was a big part of it too. I don't want to be one of these guys doing this when I'm 60 years old. I probably got 10 years left in me. That's about what I think. And I want to go at it really hard for 10 years. And I'd like to accomplish a couple things, and a blue trophy and chase that classic is something that motivates me and gets me out of bed every morning. And at the end of the day, that's honestly what it was, dude. Does that make sense? I mean, like I really needed something that just kind of pushed me. It wasn't anything negative about FLW or the MLF or any of that. This is what I knew would drive me every day to get up and go to work.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I totally get it. Like, I mean, and every person that fishes, whether you tournament fish or you don't fish, or if you're in bass fishing, there's something about it, right? Whether it's chasing a PB or the swim bait guys or the guys or the gals or anglers that like to catch them on ultralight. I mean, there's different things that get us all motivated, right? And so you kind of got to find what works for you. And that works on all. I mean, it doesn't matter if you golf or you do rodeo or you play ping pong, right? There's usually something that is some kind of spirit or something you want to do. So that's cool. So you signed up for all 8 last year. Caught a giant right away in Florida. It looked like the season was off to a great start.
Yeah.
Maybe just talk about the season and like how it went. Maybe just high level, like, I mean, it kind of felt like you were kind of doing decent and you'd kind of slip and you'd kind of but you never really like made the big jump to get right up there. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like from a distance.
Right. And I've heard a lot of that. You got to realize, man, I've been doing this and I fished against all these guys. I mean, all those guys at MLF, all the guys at FLF. At some point in time, I fished against all of them. And I know what I'm up against. And so, like, when I made this jump and it's going to the Opens and, hey, they're going to qualify, one, I knew there was going to be more competition this year than there ever had been. Two, with the way the qualifying system was set up with just taking 4 guys out of each division. And then with the 4 out of the AOY, doesn't matter. It's 4 guys basically out of 180 to 200 guys, depending on if you're talking about the Eastern or the Central. Dude, that's like 1%. It's less than 1%, I think. But it maybe it's not. Maybe I guess it'd be 2%. But it's very, very, very small, the margin. And the margin for error is very small. And I know my track record for fishing for points. Like I'm not an AOY points guy. I never have been. Not even when I was fishing BFLs in Oklahoma. I had a couple seasons that I led the AOY. I had one I led it all the way to the very end. And I'm really good at bringing out that suck fest. I'm pretty good at it. And it's me as an angler. It's the way that my brain thinks. I do think that it's what allows me to have some success and win some tournaments too at times because I'm such a risk taker, but at times it burns me. And I knew that going into this season. So what I'm getting at is like, yes, it may have looked like that from the outside, but I mean, going into the last event of this year, I had a mathematical chance of making it, the very last tournament. I mean, I had to make a top 10 and I knew I probably had to make a top 5. And when it was all said and done with, that's what the math basically came out to. I had to finish 5th or better. But I'm capable of that, and I gave myself a chance going into the very last tournament. So, I knew it wasn't going to be a 1-year deal. I told my wife, I said, this may be a 2-3 year deal to qualify. Like, this is not going to be an easy road. And I feel like I was right. I mean, it's tough to travel the country. It's tough to fish these size of fields. It's tough to fish with guys that, I mean, these lakes, dude, they just beat them to oblivion because there's no off limits in the opens. So there's a good group of guys that spend 5 to 10 days practicing, and those fish have seen a lot of baits, and a lot of them have been stuck. It makes it very hard to pinpoint a place that you can consistently catch some fish come tournament time. It's hard to catch a limit. You saw that in the fall this year in the opens. It was some tough fisheries and some tough times of the year, and it really was hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's all you can really ask, right? Is to have a shot in the last tournament, mathematically be in it. I mean, obviously it'd be great if you were dominated and you were leading the points score in the last one, but yeah, that's nothing you can bank on at that level by any means. I mean, if it's your
nobody can. Like I've roomed with all these guys. I know them. I mean, Scott Martin was on pins and needles going into the last day of the event, and he'd had a pretty good year all year. Jason Christie was, had a phenomenal year. Brian New's a good friend of mine, and he won the AOY. That dude was a basket case. He was a basket case even after he'd won it. There's a lot goes into this, and everybody realizes that it's very difficult to do. And, those guys that are kind of 1%ers, Jason Christie and Scott, and, the guys that are just kind of one notch and have been forever. It's hard to beat those dudes day after day, man. They catch them every single damn day, you know, and it just doesn't leave much room for error. But with going into 2021, you know, they've changed it all. So, you know, it's going to be 3 divisions, and the qualifications are going to be a little bit different, and that'll change some things too. Because anytime you go to 3 tournaments, then a little bit of luck gets involved, you know, and you just hope that the 3 that you do really well in are in one division, you know, and that can happen. You can also do 3 really well, maybe in 3 different divisions, and just not your day. But at least we have the overall as well going into 2021 too. So you'll be able to play both sides.
Yeah, the 3 guys that make it in the overall this year for 9 tournaments are going to damn sure earn their spot this year. Like that's going to be. I mean, that's basically being. I mean, that's the equivalent of basically finishing top 3 in the elite AOI 9. You know, what I mean, like it's. I mean, maybe not quite the same level, but you're going to compete against more guys, more locals. Like it may be even tougher than. You know what I mean? Like you could make an argument either way. Which one would be tougher from that respect?
It's tougher, and then in a way, it's easier. What ends up happening with 3 tournaments is that there's always a guy.
Only going to be like 40 or 50 guys that fish all 3, if that. But yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the overall AOY.
Yeah, the overall.
Yeah.
To win a single division, yeah. I mean that because the information rules and the practice are much less restrictive and open. You know, you can have one on your home pond, and a buddy helps you on one, and you run into him on the next one, right? I mean, like
that's right. That's right.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anglers that, you know, fish 1 year in the opens or 2 years in the open, and the 3-lake rotation hits their wheelhouse and they make it. And then sometimes they go on to good year, but more often than not, they kind of flare out because they're not ready, right? I mean,
I had a feeling that they were going to that 3 division, which meant that they were going to do 3 tournaments. And golly, man, I was like, I can't wait to see that central schedule, because I was thinking about that wheelhouse you were talking about. I was like, just like do a Sam Rayburn Texoma Grand Lake, let's go.
Yeah,
but that isn't what happened.
At least you got one on Grand.
we did still get one on Grand, and you know, it's one of my very favorite lakes in the world, and we've got it the very last event of the year. So, you know, if I can go into the end of the year somewhat like this year, I have a better chance of Grand Lake than I did sitting down there in southern Alabama, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And the other one, Pickwick, and then Douglas?
Yeah. Bass's mapping system sometimes is a little different. So their central division includes 2 in Alabama, and, well, basically 2 in Alabama. Pickwick is Alabama, Tennessee. And then Lay Lake, is that right? That's not right. Smith Lake in Alabama, which I've been there before.
Oh, Smith. So
it's Smith.
Is Douglas isn't east?
Douglas is an eastern, I believe.
Or no. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. So it's all right. Yeah, but I think Pickwick. I mean, I just came back from Pickwick, and I feel like you'll do. I mean, you probably fish Pickwick. I feel like that's probably not an uncomfortable place for you to fish.
It's not, and it's a really good time of year. I believe we're there really close to the spawn. So I've had some decent events there before. The water tends to get high there, and flipping bite's usually pretty good. There's some backwater stuff there that's big enough to play for probably this size of field. So I don't know if they'll let us lock or not. I fished events there before they let us lock up to Wilson. I don't know if they'll allow that with a bass event. That's been FLW events that I was able to do that before. Wilson's a really good fishery too. And so maybe they'll get rid of it, then I won't have to worry about that stupid lock.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, the big field, I could definitely be tempted to lock.
Yeah.
You know, if it was an elite field or, you know, a smaller field, I don't think there'd be any reason to really leave Pickwick. But, you know, if you're trying to get away from the crowds, I can see that angle.
Yeah.
Maybe let's answer one question here while we're so Spencer Whitney says, what are your top 3 confidence baits?
Top 3 confidence baits. God, man, I have fished so long. My confidence bait's anything I can get them to bite. But
I guess
I'll tell you this.
Going into your final event, what would be the 3 baits you would want to be on them on in a tournament, I guess?
I'd like to catch them flipping a BFE. I'd like to catch them spinner baiting, and I'd like to catch them on a buzz bait. That's what I'd like to do, for sure.
So going, I don't know. So you can't, last year, I mean, you had a big house. It kind of moved around a little bit based on the division, but it was kind of you, Castledine, Upshaw, and Scott, and a few other people. Are you getting the band back together to some degree? Have you talked about it? Is Panger taking Scott's place? Like, what's it looking like?
There's some rumors on all that. I know. Nothing's been nailed down yet. We've all talked. I don't think anybody knows for sure that they're going to commit one way or the other. Castledine, Upshaw's like me. He's in for everything, so he's down for it all. Castledine's still up in the air, and he doesn't really know yet. It may be just a division or so here or there. Panger is Panger, man. I don't know. We've talked about it. I can tell you that, but being in the house with us, I don't know yet. But Scott's even talked about it. I couldn't believe that. Like
fishing the opens on top of the elites.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. He's made mention of that. He was talking about that as soon as the last one was over. We went to dinner that night, kind of congratulatory celebration for him making the elites, and he was like, "Guys, I'm going to be there next year. We'll do the opens again." I'm like, I wouldn't. There's no way I would do that. But
I could see maybe a division, right? But all 9 on top of that'd be something.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would expect too. But who knows? You might see him. We might all be together in the Southerns. We'll just have to see. Panger would be a great asset in the house. I'd love to have him.
Scott wants to know, is Panger too wild for you guys?
Is Panger too wild?
Of course.
No. I'll tell you what I like about Panger. Panger can roll with anybody. Like, you can take him to a tuxedo dinner, or you can take him to a cow pasture on the tailgate of a pickup, and he can fit in both places. He's kind of a chameleon. Mm-hmm. He's really not too wild. I like his energy. That's one of the things that I would be advocate. About him. Yeah. He's got a lot of energy. I mean, like I say, he hadn't been on tour for 10 or 12, 13 years, and so he's not jaded. Like, you want that guy that wakes up every morning early before the sun clock comes up and starts rummaging around, and it just helps you get up and get around. He's talking about fishing and how to get bit, and I mean, that kind of stuff's good, as opposed to, the roommate that's like, hell, they didn't bite yesterday, I'm not gonna bite today, I'm tired, I'm gonna sleep another hour. You got to go out there and work and get it, and it just helps having that hungry blood in the house.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. I feel like Billy, on the channel, it looked like Billy brought that kind of enthusiasm. Scott's buddy, Billy.
Billy doesn't sleep much. He does go to bed a little earlier than most, but he is definitely the first one that wakes up. And I had a nickname for him. I probably not going to say it on here, but he wakes up every morning. He's ready to roll, dude. He is ready to rock when he wakes up.
He's going. He's bouncing off the walls. He's
singing. He's doing all that stuff. That all comes natural. That's not just for the camera. Now in the evenings, I'm telling you, they don't film him much because he's kind of like my dog laying over here on the floor. He doesn't usually have much to say, and he looks tired and worn out, and his hat's kind of on sideways, and
he's just kind of slumped on the couch, kind of.
Yeah. All that pep step that you see, that's generally AM for sure.
Nice. Yeah. One question we had was like, what makes Grand your favorite lake?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite lake. It's got some negatives to it too. Just the fact that everybody's fished there. When I say everybody, I'm talking about all the big tournaments, and they kind of ruined it. But it is the lake in Oklahoma that the majority of the tournaments want to go to, because like, no matter where you live in the country, you'll be able to relate with this. There's always one lake that tends to draw better. So if you're a tournament director and you're putting on a team tournament or whatever, if you can put that lake in there a couple times a season, then that's going to be your best draw. And Grand Lake is just kind of that lake. The guys that live up there are willing to fish bigger money tournaments. So for like myself, Jason Christie, Terry Butcher, we were talking about that. Guys that grew up here in this state, that thing was just on our schedule constantly. So like when we were fishing BFLs and team tournaments and all that stuff, it was just Grand Lake, Grand Lake, Grand Lake, Grand Lake, Grand Lake. And we'd fish tournament Saturday, tournament, fish one Sunday, fish two more the next weekend, and it became a rotation. Now, I personally don't get to spend that much time up there now, but It's 3 hours from my house. Like, it's not close, but it's just the one that everything went down on. It's where all the money was, and it's really where we all cut our teeth. I know Jason feels the same way about it as I do. We feel very strong, and we try to protect that house when we're there, the best we can.
It's kind of where everybody built their street cred.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
No doubt. Like, we got a lot of pride in the street cred there because, we've got some great lakes. Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma is probably twice the size of Grand, and it's really good fishing. It just doesn't draw, and it's in an area of the state that the Chamber of Commerce just don't pay the money to bring in big tournaments. And dude, it's a phenomenal tournament lake. I mean, it's massive, but nobody goes there. And we went there for team stuff and local stuff, but we would just get it once, and each series that you fished, whatever trail, we would fish 3 or 4 trails back then, and each one of them would only hit it once. So Texoma, you might only get it once every 2 years, and quite honestly, Texoma is the best lake in this state. Texoma's powerhouse, dude. It's got bigs in it. Well, the elites were there, and Hackney won, and you saw the size of fish he was catching. I mean, dude, that place has got donkeys in it. I mean, it's got, they put Floridas in it. You can catch 10-pounder, 11-pounder. Like, they're in there, not just 1 or 2 of them. There's a group of them. But Grand Lake's a special place to all of us here in Oklahoma for sure.
Yeah, you're kind of either the Grand Lake group or you're the Arkansas River group, right? Like, you're one or the other. Robert says you're one of his favorite pros to follow. I've had a few people ask me this. Have you been up to Minnesota? You ever fish in Minnesota?
I have not, and I hate that I haven't been up there. I don't know how I didn't. So here's a little background. When I told you I had some Minnesota ties. Y'all remember Derek Remitz?
Yeah,
from Minnesota. So
yep.
Grand Lake, and I don't even know what year this was. This was a long time ago. I was young in my 20s, and we were fishing all those tournaments I'm talking about. It's in March, what you were talking about. Hey, when you live up here in March, there's not much you can do. Well, there's this boat that I keep seeing, and these are 500 boat team tournaments in Oklahoma, and then the BFL on Saturday, and then he's there again the next Sunday. And I just keep noticing this kid over and over and over. And he's a kid, and but he's cashing checks. And then he fished a team tournament the next day, and he cashes a check in it. He's up there in the check line, and I noticed that the guy he fished with, I know him. He's an older guy that fishes nothing but co-angler basically here in Oklahoma. He's a really good fisherman, and Derek's teamed up with him. It was Derek's who it was. So I walk over and introduce myself. I'm like, what the hell are you doing down here? And he's kind of telling me the same thing you're telling me, like, there's not much to do. And quite frankly, I think of Minnesota as being a long ways off, but you boys can jump on I-35 and come south, and it's really not that far.
10 hours.
So he basically was coming down here to fish, and he liked to throw a jerkbait back then, and he kind of cut his teeth with that jerkbait there, and that's where he and I met. And then within a couple of years, we were both on the Elite Series together, and I think I was there the year before him, and then he fished all the Opens, qualified the next year, and then we were roommates for 6 years on the Elite Series. So I got my share of Minnesota background and watching hockey and that kind of stuff. But his parents were heavily involved with him at the time and would come and go. And he's got a great family base and support. And he was a great roommate for 6 years.
You still keep in touch with Derek?
Yeah, I do. I haven't talked to him in a while. I know that he tried to call me. Like, it's one of those deals where, like, when your phone rings and you're like, shit, I can't get to it right now. And then, like, this time goes by and you're like, damn, I need to call him. Damn, I need to call him. Damn, I need to call him. And, like, every time you think about it, it's a time like right now, and I'm thinking, damn, I need to call him back, and I still haven't. So, but yeah, I do talk to him from time to time.
I mean, he's recovered. He's back to guiding again. I haven't really.
Yep. Yeah. He's fully recovered.
Nice. Actually, so I've met Derek a few times. But actually, I fished that the tournament he won on Amistad. I fished as a co.
Really?
Yeah, and my dad was actually at the time was wintering down there in Del Rio. Had like a fifth wheel and one of those campgrounds and stuff. So I like probably back then probably sent him a Facebook message or something. Like back then, like co's could practice, and I was like, hey, you don't really know me. I'm from Minnesota. You mind if I jump in the boat? So I fished with him the last day of practice and got to see that deep ledge bite he was on. Yeah, and that was cool. So I got to fish with him that day, and watched him kind of like put the final touches on his practice before he won that event. So that was
We
cool.
we were staying in a hotel right across from Diablo East, which is the boat ramp there, and that hotel's closed now. It's not even open, but those beds in there were on CMU block walls, or blocks, CMU
Yeah.
block. There was no bed frame, and yeah, he won $100,000, and we're staying in a hotel. It costs about $20 a night, right on the Mexican border. What a great story!
Yeah, that's amazing. And he almost went out and finished third on the Delta, the very next tournament, or
Finished second, damn near
second or
won.
third. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Good.
that was a whirlwind, dude. We're the same thing. We're in a little bitty cheap hotel out there, and we're just two guys just trying to get our foot in the door, and pro bass fishing. And here I walk in my door that evening, and I've got a first place trophy that because we just went straight out there. We didn't even go home.
Right.
There's the first place Elite Series trophy sitting there, and the second place Elite Series trophy sitting there on the counter. So yeah, he definitely had his time in the sun there quickly.
Yeah. Kenny said at least they had good tacos at that hotel.
Yeah. Actually, they didn't. If your dad wintered down there at that time, you'll remember there wasn't much to eat right around the lake, and at a gas station, the Chevron, or whatever it was, they had a little bit, and they sold a lot of tackle. And those cooks down there, they're straight from Mexico. It was beans and potatoes. They didn't spice much up, and it wasn't much sausage and not much meat. It was beans and potatoes, flour tortillas, what I remember.
Nice. Did you? I don't know if you heard that, but I guess recently in one of Randy Blockett's videos, he put Grand as one of the most overrated lakes in the country, in his opinion. Did you hear about that, or thoughts, or?
That Grand is one of the most overrated?
Yeah, he had a list of I don't know if it was 5 or whatever, 5 most underrated and 5 most overrated or something like that. I didn't watch the video, but I've heard people talk about it. But
Grand, fortunately for us locals, it's really stingy come March. I don't know why. They bite pretty good there in February. Well, some years they don't, but some years they'll bite in that January, February, like when the winter tournament's coming on, and then our spring tournaments usually start somewhere around the 1st of March. And it can get really stingy there. It's been that way since I can remember. But when you figure it out, the deal is if you can get bites, they're generally the right ones. It's just hard to get a bite. Last time we were there, that time of year, that FLW Tour event was there a couple years ago, and it was that same way. Jeremy Lawyer won it with a spinnerbait, but man, it was hard to generate bites. But I can see where a lot of guys come there and think this place sucks. But I can tell you this: we had probably one of the best overall sight fishing events there ever. I don't know what year this would have been, 2014, something like that. It was a Costa. And, dude, I'm telling you, you didn't even freaking mark 3-pounders because 3-pounders were everywhere. The zebra mussels had come in there, and they had filtered that water out like it had never been before. You could literally see 6 foot deep on Grand Lake. And, Grand Lake's not usually like that at all. And those stupid fish, they would get right back up there and spawn at like a foot of water where they had always spawned. They didn't realize, the water's a lot clearer. And then there they were, in all their glory. And places that we used to just throw a spinnerbait by hoping there was a dead fish back there, and one eats it. Now all of a sudden you can see them. So everybody was able to sight fish. But geez, dude, the amount of 3 3/4. I know Castledine was staying with me at that event, and he loves to sight fish, and he came in. He was like, no wonder, they have all these 20-pound bags up here because, God, they're everywhere. And I was like, I know it, they are. But now when I say that, it was very, very uncommon to see a 5+.
Right.
And you found a 5+, dude, it was like they were hard to find. But those 3.5, 3 3/4, they were freaking everywhere. And that's truly what lives in that lake. We have some really good summer tournaments up there, dude. I've just seen a lot of events that it's not overrated. My biggest bag there, I had a 27.27, 5-fish limit, and that was flipping. Not looking at them. This was been some time ago, but there's been 28s. There's been some big bags. Hell, look what Edwin caught. What did he have? He had 30, didn't he? Now that's the biggest bag I've ever heard of being caught on that lake, and he did it on the most glorified day of all time. Like you talking about the stars aligning. I've never seen a bag that big there.
Yeah, I don't think Grand's overrated. I think it's moody. It
gets beat to death, dude. There's a tournament there every single Saturday and every single Sunday.
Yeah, and I think there's just been a little bit of a bad timing, right? The last few opens, the last few tour events just haven't hit it right. So,
like I said, March is stingy there. March is tough, and then they either go then or they go in the fall. And when you go in the fall, I mean, it's at the end of all summer long. They've just been beat on, and it's just a tough fishery. They're educated. They know what those fish have seen a bait or two in their life.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of agree with A-Red. Like, I always thought it was pretty hypocritical when Blockett was complaining about Livescope and this and that. And he's sponsored by Megabass and selling $27 jerkbait. So he's, one time he's telling you like he wants to make the sport more accessible and this and this. I don't know. I always thought that was kind of funny that he was preaching that, and then he's peddling the most expensive tackle you can buy.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
but whatever. It's yeah. I mean, we kind of talked bass fishing fools, and we kind of talked about that. I mean, overall, like obviously Grand is on the schedule. Just like high level next year, like more positive, less positive. You don't really care. It's just a place or a venue. Like, what are your thoughts on overall? Fishing all 9.
My first thoughts were, honestly, dude, I didn't want to see a bunch of rivers. So if I'm going to have a tangent, so Randy has his tangent about the grass. My tangent this year is, dude, I'm sick of seeing those little bitty boats, those little bitty aluminum boats. It's cheating. That's what it is. I'm not kidding, dude. Like, I can go off on this. This is 2020. I'm tired of hearing, well, you got to keep it so that everybody can afford to get in it. Dude, those guys in that little boat are spending just as much money as everybody in a fiberglass boat. They're just pulling their little P-row down there so that they can go get in the back of a little bitty creek and fish for fish that nobody else can fish for.
That's their second boat. That's not their.
Their second boat. So, I mean, I'd already told my wife, I'm like, dude, if they come out with another schedule that's got all these rivers and stuff on it, I'm buying one. I'll buy one. I'll drag 2 boats to the lake. I'll help weld me a hitch on the back of my bass boat and just pull 2 of them. And I can do that west of the Mississippi River. Like, it's legal where I live. You can put 2, 3 of them up there. It doesn't matter. I know once I go on the other side of the Mississippi River, it changes. But they didn't do that. So you're asking about schedules. I like seeing things on an even playing field. That's all I'm asking. I mean, I don't like it when 20 guys can show up and they can access water that nobody else can get into. That to me is not trying to figure out who the best fisherman is. That's seeing who can access water that nobody else can access. And believe me, I'm a creek fisherman, but at least make them do it out of their fiberglass, So the schedule came out. There's no rivers on it, so I don't really have that issue. So that was one really big positive, Yeah,
I don't think anybody's going to bring their tin boat up to Clayton on that river. So
no. No, you talking about the St. Lawrence?
Yeah.
Yeah, bring that P-row up there. Yeah, bring it on. Which hell, they may catch them. They may go in some creek, but I'm like you, it's not going to happen. But yeah, that was a little good thing about seeing the schedule. They're all on pretty good fisheries, every one of them. Most of them are plenty big enough, They're not places that I can't think of one off the top of my head that just fishes extremely small. Louisville was an issue this year, and I knew it was going to be. That place is tough anyway sometimes, and it just doesn't fish very big.
Was Louisville on the original schedule, or is that a?
Mm-hmm. But we were originally supposed to be there in the spring, which would have made it a little bit better, for sure. For sure, would have made it better. It made more areas play.
Maybe Douglas. Sometimes that river on Douglas, people take their boats up that. So maybe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's where Odd Defoe's been running his boat, is up in the top of it.
They ruled out. I mean, the tunnel. Yeah, I mean, you can't run a tunnel in the opens anymore, but you could run a flat, right? So.
Yeah, those guys just do. I mean, I just want them. Come on, man. Like, are we gonna fish a bass tournament? Or are we gonna? Well, what are we doing? And like I say, they always want to use that excuse about the boats. Look, dude, and I want to be perfectly clear here too. I don't have a problem with those express boats that like Dale Hightower and them are running, with 250 horsepower on the back of them. I'm fine with all that. I'm not talking about those boats. I'm talking about those ones that you look at them and you're not even sure they're 16 foot long. And it's just they're little bitty canoes is what they are. Little bitty canoes. I mean, when you're sitting this close to your partner and you're riding and you both stick, 5 foot up out of the boat, looks like you're 10 foot tall, and that guy's only barely 5 foot. And I would look like Andre the Giant driving some of those boats. But Yeah, that's the thing that I'm against. It's not the big ones. Maybe just make them to be 18 or 19 foot, 18 foot. Hell, that's fine. You know.
Yeah, I guess FLW. I mean, there was a big stir when evidently they have a minimum horsepower now, right? And Keith O'Shea got caught by that or something. But,
yeah. His boat is one of the ones I'm talking about. I mean, it's specifically built to do what he's doing out of it. And dude, he cleaned house with it. I mean, he did. And I get it. I know how those guys, I mean, he's not the only one. There's lots of guys like that. They're like, if I can find a gray area in a rule and I can find and make an advantage, right? It's like NASCAR. If you're not bumping, you're not racing. But man, I just ain't for all that.
Yeah, I get it. I know that was Kennedy's big deal back in the day too, right?
Absolutely.
He'd bring it. He had always ran a 19-foot nitro, and he'd bring his tracker with him just in case. And so,
yeah, and then on the Elite Series,
he's just as passionate as you are against it as he is for it. So I mean, it's just perspective. So,
well, if everybody ran that boat, then that advantage is gone.
Right.
I've seen it a lot. I mean, like I say, I'm not mad at anybody doing it. I'm friends with Poche. I like Poche. I'm not saying that. I think it's cheating. I mean, to me, it's the same in my mind. That's right. What they're doing. But I guess if you don't like it, join them, right? I don't know. But if they'd have put 5 rivers on that schedule, that's what I'd have probably gone and done.
Yeah. I just want to say, hey, thanks for everybody joining. We're already like over 80 live viewers tonight, so that's awesome. Carl's asking, like, what was it? Did you catch that 8-pounder on a BFE early in the year, or was that?
No.
I didn't think you did.
No, I caught it on a speed worm. Yeah. Typical Florida, the curly tail speed worm. It may have been a big bite. It may have been a zoom. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. I'm trying to just tell you the honest answer.
I'd say that was before the BFE was. That was even before you had a BFE prototype, I think.
We might have had. No, we didn't even have the first prototype.
I don't think so.
You're right.
I don't think that was even before you guys even talked about it.
Yeah, no, it came on a speed worm. That was a fish that I'd actually shooken off. I think the day before. It was an awesome fish because I'd thrown up next to this group of pads, and it didn't have a hook on it, and that fish, bit, which I'd shucking fish off, but then she started moving and she didn't let go of it, and she literally like tore 2 or 3 of those pads out. Like, there was no mistaking that it was a big fish. It wasn't it was over 5 pounds. I didn't know how big it was, but it was definitely over 5. And I felt like it was bigger than that. And the time of year that we were down there, there was a chance opportunity that could be a bedfish. I couldn't see it, right? I mean, I couldn't visually see her. She was too deep. But where she was sitting on this little group of isolated pads, I felt like she could be. And so the first morning of the tournament, she was down on Lake Kissimmee. I have to go through the lock, and the whole time I'm thinking in the lock, where am I going to go? Because I've got this one little area of grass bed that you can catch 5 or 6 pretty quick. And I thought some of them might be good ones too, And I kind of wanted to go to that first, but I was like, dude, even though you're fishing for points is right out of the gate, you've got a big bite like that. Like, you've got to try. I had no other bites around this fish, by the way. Like, she's all by herself. There's nothing else there. So I take the gamble and I roll the dice and I go there, and I'll be darned if she didn't bite on the exact same, cast. And yeah, I got pretty dang excited. That's probably why I was so emotional on camera when I caught that fish. 1, because she's a giant, but 2, because like I really took a high risk move to go.
You were like literally holding your breath when you made that first cast. Like,
yeah,
I hope this works.
When you finally come down off pad, you're like, this is stupid, and you see them guys run. They're all running to your other spot.
You're like trying to watch your grass slide off in the distance. Yeah, like, are they going that way? Like,
yeah, like this fish is not going to bite. It's probably a carp, you idiot. Probably something. But no, my instinct was right. It was probably a spawning largemouth for her to be sitting there like that. So I got very fortunate. But yeah, it made me super, super pumped. I mean, when she bit, dude, I knew it was her. Like, there wasn't any. I was like, oh my God, that's going to be her. And whacking that rod lows, and it was good stuff.
Yeah, good thing it wasn't the male, because it would have got yanked over the boat.
It would have.
So Sunline has a ton of different lines, fluoros. Like, what are the ones you use, your core, and how do you use them?
I would say that I use probably sniper and shooter. And I would say that I'm very much in line with a lot of the guys that use a lot of Sunline. I use the sniper for anything that I'm winding, like chatterbait, crankbait. I do like that crank that they make. I don't know if it's CD crank or XC crank, but they've got that one line. It's called crank, and it is really good stuff for crankbaiting. I do like it. It's got a little bit more stretch to it. Anything that I am pitching, flipping, short hook sets, or even a worm, casting a long worm, that's when I tend to like the shooter better over the sniper. It doesn't have much stretch at all. It's abrasive resistant. It's probably my favorite line. They came out with a new fluorocarbon, maybe 2018. And I think Jason Christie helped them design it, but I like it a lot. When I first saw it, I was like, man, that's goofy as hell. But it's clear for like 3 feet, and then it's got like 1 foot of high vis orange or high vis yellow. I like it because I'm a line watcher, and you can cut your bait and so that it's about 3 foot, and like you see that high vis every time, and it's not anywhere around that fish. And I like it. It's good stuff.
So how would you say that? What is outside of the coloring, is it more like sniper? Is it more like shooter? Is it?
I would say it's definitely more like shooter.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I know Don has asked us a few times. You talk about that little crankbait you talked on one of Scott's videos that I think it's a 1.0.
Yeah. I actually brought some baits in here we could talk about. I figured that one was going to come up. I got some LBJs here.
I got your back, Don. I told him this was gonna come up, so I made him prep. So
this is my little crankbait box.
Just a second. I'm gonna make it bigger. There you go.
There we go. So you can kind of see it's pretty well stocked with little cranks. Some of them are shallow. Some are shallow runners. Some are a little deeper runners. Dude, I feel terrible. I don't know the actual size, if it's a 1 or a 2, but they do make one smaller than this. There we go. They make one smaller, but this is the one I probably throw the most. This is the RC made by Lucky Strike. It really all started with let me find some in here. Panger was catching them on this thing when we were at Neely Henry, and I didn't realize that he was catching them all, but he was catching them all on the original 0.5, which was a Lucky Craft. The only ones you could buy at Bass Pro. And I had 3 or 4 of them, and some of the originals. Trying to get it out here. The hook issue where there's all tangled up in hooks.
Yeah, if you don't have, you're not trying. If your baits don't tangle up, you ain't got enough baits.
Ouch. I got a hook in my finger. So you can kind of see the size difference if I hold up the camera here, maybe. Just from the backs. Well,
sure.
You can't really see, but this is the original 0.5 right here. And it's not, see how much wider the Lucky Strike is?
Yeah.
This one in this hand. And it just gives me a little bit more weight, castability, and it's still that really small profile because, size-wise, I'm having a hard time with the camera. Size-wise, they're not that much different, but it is smaller, and it's quite a bit thinner. That's really where you notice it is in the width. But anyway, he was catching them on that original 0.5, and I told him I'd give him some, and I didn't realize how much he wanted them. He said the next day he really wished he'd have taken them from me, but yeah, I throw that little crankbait a lot. Like I say, I throw some deeper diver ones too.
Is that mostly a fall thing for you when the bait's small, or when do you like to throw those small?
I would say primarily fall for me. This is a deeper diver one. This is a Academy brand. And, yeah, and I actually caught him on this thing really good at Lake Fork one year in the post spawn. So May, fishing was odd. It was like tough. You couldn't hardly get a bite. I pulled that thing out and they ate it really, really good. some of the mouths of some of the spawning creeks coming out. They were post-spawn bass, but yeah. I love that little crankbait, man. It produces in the fall sometimes for me. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's been a good little bait for a long time.
Another question: do you have a favorite lipless?
Man, I don't have that.
Lipless?
I'm not a.
You don't really throw lipless?
I throw it, when we go to Florida and different things. But if I can throw a different bait than that lipless, I'm going to throw it.
So the answer is his favorite lipless is a spinnerbait.
Yeah, spinnerbait or a chatterbait. I ran with Brian Schmidt for 2 or 3 years on tour at Remitz, and he's probably the best chatterbait fisherman I've ever been around. And I learned a lot from him between his swim jig and his chatterbait. I like that. I like that option usually better than the rattle trap.
For sure, I can see that. So Austin says, after we're almost, we're not quite there, but we're creeping on the 1-year anniversary of the BFE.
Yeah.
He wants to know, did it live up to the name? And is there anything you would change after fishing it a whole lot? I mean, obviously you fished the prototypes, but now that you've got, you probably went through a few hundred counts now. Like, what are your thoughts? Is it the perfect flipping bait? Is it close? What do you think?
Yeah, it's close. Yeah, no. the only thing that's happened to it that wasn't good was that it came out after flipping season was over, and we didn't really have the high water. But
right,
there's going to be derbies one on that sucker come next spring, guaranteed, because we sold a bunch, and a lot of guys have them in their hands now at this point, and hell yeah, it's going to play. I did make that bait. I seriously, that wasn't a sales pitch. I made that bait to catch fish. It'll catch them. There's no doubt about it. It'll catch them. Some of the guys that don't like it, I know the feedback that I get of the guys that don't like it, they're generally guys that they want some kind of action to their bait. And I get that. Like, I understand that. And I definitely built that bait to do just the opposite. I didn't want a lot of action. And catches them. I mean, it's in the same line as a beaver or a Cinco or, some of the best plastics that ever been built to catch more fish than any of them, a tube. They have very, very, very little action. What action they do have is very subtle, and that bait has the same thing. So it holds the hook real well. It's durable. That was a big thing for me. I got tired of ripping baits. When I'm flipping all the time, I want something that stays on the hook better. So it's beefier and meatier in the middle to try to help you keep that thing hooked up on a hook to where you're just more efficient throughout the day. So you're not having to always fix your plastic, before the next flip.
Yeah. I think when I had Panger on the stream a couple weeks ago, and I think he did a really good job. If you guys haven't seen that, go back and watch that one. But he does a really good job explaining his theory on, crayfish with no pinchers or one pinchers, and they thinks like beavers and the BFE are just not threatening. So it looks like a really easy meal, and there's a really low risk that the fish is going to get clipped in the gills or injured. So I think it's a really interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
I guess favorite BFE color.
My favorite color is BTL without a question. BTL or Bedlam, and it's not just because we had a color contest. We had a color contest for guys that don't know, and we ended up with like 2,000 or 1,800, something like that, entries, and we had to pick one. But Bedlam ended up winning. It's basically what would be the old school black neon in a tube, which was always one of my very favorites. A little
different orange, crimson.
Right.
Slightly different flake, but really close. Yep.
Right. So one side basically is black neon. It's black and red, which matches the Bedlam is the football game in Oklahoma every year between in rival states of Oklahoma State and University of Oklahoma. So it's basically their colors. So one's orange and flake and one side's red flake. But I like it a whole lot. And like I said, black neon was always one of my standbys anyway. But that BTL color is sharp, dude. They eat that sucker.
And it's really unique. I think if you're looking for a color, especially something that's got a little bit of color to it or stain to it, that's going to show them something that's going to probably be different than most people are going to be flipping. It's a really unique color, I think.
Yeah.
It's almost like that old sour grape Lake Fork tube crowd a little bit, but a little different too at the same time.
We're sitting here talking about it. Let me see if I've got one. I probably don't.
I have some, but they're not anywhere near me.
Well, my BFE box is like, I've got 2 of them left. So like my box is just crammed full of BFEs. That's how much I'm using it. So if you guys can see that, it's got a chartreuse. So it's black, chartreuse, and then Junebug. It's a laminate. It's a 3-color laminate. It's a sharp bait. It's probably my favorite color, without a doubt. Some of them come out a little bit more chartreuse, look more like that down the side, and then I think that's the Bedlam we were talking about. That's obviously the red side, and that's the orange side. But it's very close to a black neon. And anytime I'm flipping, black and blues, hematoma, both those are standbys as well. I think you guys up north probably fish a little bit more green pumpkin and the other colors that like the
like tilapia magic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, tilapia or tilapia magic.
No, I definitely bought some of those for Leech Lake this fall, and I had decent success on them, but the flipping bite was really weird. It got cold, and I don't know. And it wasn't the BFE's fault, but I was having trouble keeping them pegged in the wild rice.
Yeah.
But I was having trouble with all baits. It wasn't. Ken says, I've already burned through 25 plus packs of the BFE. So sounds like we need bulk packs, is what we're saying.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people wanting that mega pack. I'm all for it too, man. Get 25 or 50 in a bag, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of chatterbait, Carl wants to know what Falcon rod and series do you use for your chatterbait?
This is going to sound crazy, but we went through a couple-year period there where some of the names, they would name a rod, and the action didn't really match up real well with the name of the rod. I used to tease Jason about it a little bit. I was like, dude, I heard you were the one that did all the naming on that. He's like, man, I didn't have nothing to do with that. But they've got one that's called a Deep Jig, Stroking Jig, something like that. It's the one that I use. It's like 7'3". It's got a real light tip on it. Like you would never get a hook and a fish with this jig, with this rod ever. And it is a wonderful, wonderful chatterbait rod. Absolutely special. I wish I could think of the name of it. If I saw it in my hand, I'd be like, yeah, that's it. But they made it in a lowrider, and they also made it in the expert series. They made it in both series, and I throw it on both rods. They're perfectly the same. It's just a little bit different graphite that they're made from. One's a little bit more expensive, but man, it's an awesome chatterbait rod.
Nice. There's a lot of people in here that have agreed the BFE has been working for them, and the Logan asks, it's a solid body, so it looks like a ring, like a tube craw body, but a little thinner, but it's solid. It's not hollow like a tube craw.
All right. And that's what I really tried to combine. I wanted something that was somewhat like a beaver, but then I wanted that tube bodied, just the fall and all that. And that's kind of what we were after.
So I think we're getting a few other questions about the little brown jigs, so we might as well deep dive on that.
Okay.
He says, do you make yours? Do you buy them? Are they what's
I don't buy them. This started a long time ago, dude. This started with I'll show you. This is cool since we're doing this. I'll hang on a second.
Yeah, for sure. We're not afraid to get into the weeds and deep dive on the baits here. So, hey, while we're waiting for Brad to grab those LBJs, we're creeping up. We're above 80 viewers, so if you guys can hit that thumbs up and maybe try to get close to 100 here while we got Brad on, that'd be awesome. Let's show him some love for taking the time to be with us tonight. So,
let's see if I can get this positioned right on this camera. Can you see that? That was a long time ago.
Slightly younger Bradley Hallman and the other guy.
Yeah, that was my team partner for many years. We lost him this year. He passed away, and he died of cancer. Came quick and didn't last long, and he's my best friend for many years. But look, I was still even wearing Falcon shirts back then. Champion boats, they're long gone now, but we won that event. That was up there on 10 Killer, where Jason lives. And we had 23 or 4 pounds that day. We had some big ones, but that was like once we had the LBJ figured out, and that's when it got its name. Quite honestly, we named it the LBJ, and we just named it that for the little brown jig. But back then it was actually the Akins jig, and they came in 3 in a pack back then from Jewel, and they made one called a rubber hand tie, and the rubber that came on it was special, and we didn't realize it at the time, Well, we realized it by like when we won that tournament, we realized it. I mean, we were already catching them before that tournament, but that's right around that time frame when we really figured it out. But the rubber was really the big deal, and they quit making that bait. But the cool things, one is this is one right here. One is it had a copper hand tie. So this is, instead of having a rubber collar on it, it's got copper or a brass tie that you twist on there so that it can't come off. That skirt's not coming off there at all. That was a big part of it. And then the skirt material was a big part of it. This is flat rubber. And I promise you, if you don't know what this is, if you think you're going to go find it, you're going to get on the internet tonight and you're going to find it in 10 minutes and be like, I've got it. But I promise you, you don't have it. This is flat. There's nothing round about it. It's not square. It's specially shaped. I've heard different rumors about this rubber, about the mold that made it, and that it went to China and it didn't come back and it wasn't popular. Lots of things. But this rubber breathes really, really well in the water. That's what it's about. So if you drop it in like a glass of water, it just continues to pulse. Just sitting there on bottom, but the rubber just continues to pulse. It's subtle. You know, we were talking about subtle baits a minute ago, catching fish. But originally we were only throwing the 5/16, but the hook in the original wasn't any good. You'll have to forgive my weed guard. I know it's long. These are just ones that have been tied up, and usually I just trim them right before I cast it out there if I tie a new one on. But had to get a bigger hook. I ran into a situation in Texas early in my career with some 7 and 8 pounders, and they're a little bit bigger and meaner than our 4s and 5 pounders when we get a hold of the big one here in Oklahoma, and they straighten the hook out. So I did some different compromise and changed some stuff, but it's still, you know, about the same thing. That's a mustad hook I put in mine now, and fiber weed guard's a little bit lighter than most jigs that you see. And it's built for skipping. That's why the tide on the skirt is such a big deal. It's built to skip, and so you get a good cast and you skip it back there in the middle of the dock, and then you know, gets down there and you get your bait back after you work it back. You don't get a bite, and your skirt's down there at the bottom of your hook. You know, it's kind of aggravating, but so that prevents that. And man, it's just a bait that I made a lot of money on through the years. And then I started, you know, talking about it publicly 4 or 5 years ago quite a bit. And the name LBJ kind of stuck. So that's probably how I ended up kind of with the BFE, because I knew that the LBJ was a well-known name just from me talking about a little brown jig. So it kind of helped me come up with the name of the BFE as well.
Sure. And so you're always throwing like a ball head, right? I mean, that's
it's a ball head jig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you make those, or do you have somebody make them for you, or?
So we started running out of them. So Larry and I bought everything we could find in the country. I mean, literally, we had. I didn't ask after he passed away, but his son, who just graduated high school, was telling me, he said, "Hey, I still got a bunch of those under the bed, under Dad's bedroom, under his bed, his bedroom." And I was like, well, just keep those, but don't ever give them to anybody, dude, because they're special and, you know, they won't ever be made again. But I knew when those started running low, I had to come up with something else. Larry and I had searched the rubber. The rubber's the big deal. Like, anybody can make the jig, but the rubber is the thing. And different people would come up with it, tell us they had it. And Larry had a store, 2 stores there in Eufaula. He lived on Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma. And he called me one day and he said, Hallman, he said, I got a roll of that rubber. And I was like, really? And he's like, dude, I've got it. A roll of rubber. And he paid like $100 for this. I mean, it's just a roll, like,
right.
Not very big, like that big around. And, but it was enough to make 100, 150 jigs out of, you know, just something like that. Maybe more. But, so he'd bought it. And I said, how much more, where did you get it? He told me about this guy that knew a guy that had it. And I was like, well, how much does he have? And he said, oh, he's got quite a bit. And I said, well, how much does he want for it? And he said, oh, well, it's too expensive. Larry wasn't telling me this. The other guy was telling Larry this. It is too expensive. And I said, well, tell him, call me, you know. So the guy calls me and he's like, well, I can sell it on eBay and I can sell it all for $100, $150 for those little bitty rolls. I said, how much do you have? And he said, dude, I've got like a big giant brown paper sack like you get from Walmart of it, full of it. I was like, how much? And he's like, too much. And so then he finally came up with the price. I don't remember what it was, $3,000, $4,000, something like that. And I was like, done. Send you a check tomorrow. Give me that rubber. And he's like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, nope, I'll take it all. So I bought every bit of it, and I still have it. So it was enough rubber that I knew that it was going to last Larry and I the rest of our lives, dude. And I give it to no one. I mean, no one gets my jigs. Upshaw was actually giving me a hard time at the last event about the fact that I hadn't given him a brown rubber jig yet. Dude, I don't give them to anybody. It's kind of my little bait, and I catch a lot of fish on it, and those other jigs will catch them too, like the silicone skirts and all that. It's just a confidence deal with me, but there are times that skirt makes a difference. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So A-Red, LBJ just means little brown jig. So it's not a company. It's just
Little brown jig.
It's a thing. It's not really a
and I've heard some other guys talking about it. What they're going to do is, I've talked about it enough now, there's going to be a company come out with one. They're going to knock the name off, which is fine. But
I mean, even Swindle, there's other people that use the term little brown jig. Swindle says it, but I think he throws more of an Arky style. Other people have their own little brown jigs, right?
100%. Yeah. They just don't call them LBJ. That'll be the difference. That'll be what they'll take from me. If they take the coin LBJ. But yeah, that's what it is. It's just a little brown jig. And hell yeah, everybody throws that thing. Dude, that's the same thing that Swindle won he talked about it the year he won the AOY. Last one he won at Bassmaster, that he threw that jig all year long. 100%.
Yeah. So what do you use for trailers, fluorocarbon setup? Like, what do you like for, we're talking about a finesse flipping jig, right? Little ball head jig, brown. So you can make your own. You won't have the exact rubber, but you can make your own LBJ, and you're going to catch fish on it. What's your setup for fishing it?
The trailer doesn't really matter a lot, just tremendously. I use a green pumpkin all the time. I've used Zoom speed crawls in the beginning to now I'm using some crawls from Big Bite to, like, it doesn't really matter that much on bites. What matters to me is the color. I generally use green pumpkin or the tilapia magic, depending on watercolor where I'm fishing. I don't ever dye the tail or anything. I use the trailer to affect the fall rate. So if I want it to fall slower, I use a trailer that's got more flaps to it. If I want it to fall faster, then I use a trailer that doesn't have all that drag to it. Does that make sense? So that's really kind of my trailer system, because all my jigs they're probably a 7/16 is about what they are. They're right underneath a half ounce, or if you just want to call them a half ounce, that's probably what they are too. But the line size and stuff that I use, the rod that I've used forever, Falcon used to make the rod. They still make the same rod. It's just got a different name, back to the naming of rods. But it used to be called the Akins Jig Special, because this was originally the Akins jig. That's what this was all copied off of. That rod is now changed. It's called a Finesse Jig Special. I also use a head turner. So we got the Finesse Jig Special, which is like a 5 power, I believe, and the head turner is a 6 power. I think I've got that right. 6 power being a little bit stronger. It's a little bit stiffer rod. I use both those rods with this jig, but I probably use the Finesse Jig Special the most. It's the one that was more like the Akins. I can throw this jig. Now, I've got some other ones. In here. I've got some that have got smaller wire diameter on the hook. The one that I showed you is the bigger one. It's the one I use the most. But if I go to if I'm fishing deep, like if I go to Table Rock or somewhere like that and I'm fishing with it, a lot of times we fish with it on 10-pound test line. I know that sounds crazy, but dude, it's a pretty good setup. And it was like the damn A-rig when it first came out up there, I think. But 10-pound test line and that Finesse Jig Special from Falcon. When I use it on 15, I probably use that head turner a little bit more, but I still use a Finesse Jig some, depending on where I am. I like using that Finesse Jig rod for skipping docks. It's a big deal to me to be able to skip docks with it. The rod's just got a real good load to it. And so whenever it comes back forward, the way that rod unwinds, it really just helps skip that bait and give it a lot of action. So casting and accuracy, I like that Finesse Jig rod.
Yeah. And they're all horizontal line ties? Or are they?
Yes, they are horizontal. Mm-hmm.
You think that's important?
Yes. There's no doubt that ball head was spot on. Yeah. And we've all got that Elvis collar, and I don't know that that's such a big deal either, especially around the country. Quite frankly, I probably ought to make some right now that aren't that, but I haven't. I'm just throwing the same one, but it's kind of gotten to a point where it's not what it once was. It used to be, dude, it caught the biggest damn fish in the lake, but it doesn't seem to be as strong as it once was. You know, back then everybody and their dog didn't have one tied on. Then it got to a point where, like a Grand Lake and a Nichols team tournament, there's 500 boats in the tournament. You walk down the dock at weigh-in, and you could just count LBJs all the way down the dock off every deck, every boat, you know. And that's probably what killed it. But I've talked to the guys at Table Rock. There's a lot of guys that fish in Missouri that were famously known for it. The Davis brothers, Jim Akins himself, Troy Akins, his son. I mean, those boys made a lot of money with that bait, and it's not as a dominant bait as it once was, but it still catches a lot of fish, and then put in the right situation, it can still win tournaments. I took that thing to TVA on Lake Wheeler.
Right?
Yeah, I'd have another one of those trophies behind me. I was 1 ounce after 4 days.
I remember watching that tournament. That was
LBJ.
awesome.
Yeah. And that was pretty cool to do that with that bait and take it out there and catch them. So there's still some places in the country it'll play. I always notice that, like, if it's a place that they haven't seen it, they eat it a lot better, you know, than a place in the Ozarks and the Oklahoma area. They just beat them to death with it.
Nice. And you straight fluoro, right? You're not a braid to fluoro guy, right?
Not at all. It's straight fluoro, dude. And so, like I say, it changes depending on the depth that I'm fishing and the fall rate. I throw that thing anything from 10-pound test all the way up to 20. So it just depends on where I am in the country, the size of fish, the depth I'm fishing, things like that. So like when I'm down in Texas fishing at around docks and stuff, it's going to be 20-pound test. But if I'm in Oklahoma and other parts of the country, I can get by with 15 because, you know, you can get broke off, but you can get broke off with 22 depending on what's on a dock. But I get by. I feel like you get more bites with it with lighter line.
For sure. Especially, pressured, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If you're up here in Minnesota where the fish are done, you can just throw 20 all the time.
Well, I'll tell you where I haven't had a lot of success with that bait. I thought originally, like when I was a rookie, my first few years on the Elite Series, I thought I was going to be able to take that bait. I thought that up north where those smallmouth were, I thought they were just going to eat the paint off of it. Like, dude, they're going to. Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, a football jig plays a little bit, but. Yeah. You use it the jig mostly in grass. I think you're more hardcover structure bank laydowns, right? Like it's.
What's that now?
So what? Somebody has to use it more in grass, or is it more hardcover structure? And I think it's the latter, right?
Yeah, the jig.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's where I haven't had success with it is grass. I'm not saying I hadn't caught fish on it, but I think there's other baits that produce better than it in those same places. It doesn't shine in grass. It shines on rock. So rock holes. Rock is where it shines.
Yeah. There's definitely jigs that shine in the grass. The LBJ is not the jig that shines in the grass.
Right. Well, the horizontal line tie right from the jump is not a good deal in the grass. So, you know, it's at a downfall right off the jump.
Nick asked an interesting question. Do you ever switch up color? Is it always just a straight brown? Is there ever a time you go black and blue or play with colors? Or
I do throw black and blue. That's about the only color I throw. A lot of times I'll still throw the brown and I put a black and blue trailer on it. You know, I do a lot with that trailer. I told you, I change trailers a lot. Change colors, I change fall rates, I change actions, I change a lot with just by changing the color, and I keep the same jig.
I do a lot of the same. I fish a lot of jigs, and I only keep 2 or 3 jig colors, and then I just play with trailers for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt says, "What's up with your old jersey with the red and yellow stripes? It reminds me of a German soccer team."
Yeah, I get a hard time over that. James Watson told me one time. He's like, "That's the ugliest damn jersey on tour, dude." It probably is. It's left over from Dan O'Sullivan may have designed that originally. That'd be a good question for Dano. Dano now lives in Alabama, but he was out on the West Coast and he was doing some stuff for Mark Jeffries with the Bass Talk Live, right? And my rookie year, I traveled with Mark, and Mark was like, you know, I was with Skeeter at the time, and Mark was with Skeeter, so they worked out a deal. I ran a Bass Zone wrap, and I had a Bass Zone custom made jersey, and I worked with Mark and Skeeter with this, and I think Dan O'Sullivan designed that jersey originally. Dano's about my age, and I don't know, man. That one was a little more yellow, for sure. I mean, Mark still got one. If you look in the BTL deal, he still got one of the jerseys back there that was from that. But that color scheme just kind of morphed into what I wear today. I do take a little more yellow and a little more red out of time to time, but dude, I've got friends of mine, that younger guys, they're like, you look like damn Ronald McDonald, you know, you love those Ronald McDonald colors. And I really don't, but I do kind of like the way the jersey looks from time to time. So I guess if it works for me, it works. But dude, I really realize there's a lot of people out there like that thing is freaking horrible.
Yeah, at least they know who you are, though. Taking notice.
Yeah.
I was gonna show, like, so I kind of have like this is a jig that I made up.
Yeah.
That I kind of hand tied with I use a kind of little purple wire in there. But this skirt material is hydro silk, which is another skirt material they don't really make anymore. It used to come on the original series of True Tungsten jigs.
Yeah.
And they came out with this hydro silk, and it's kind of a round silicone rubber. It's kind of unique. It really has a lot of action to it. I mean, you just see like the movement. It's just like, and I just it's kind of like my version of the LBJ. I kind of tied up a green pumpkin brown black mix, and that's just something that I throw more of the Arky style because that works better on the grass, and it's still good around wood and docks and that kind of stuff up here.
And you got it hand tied as well, right?
It's got a purple wire tied.
Yep. And what's the eye on it? Is it?
Yeah, so this is a vertical Arky.
Yep.
So for our docks where I fish grass, this is a more versatile jig up in Minnesota.
So the Arky jig, I'm like you. The Arky jig's head style is one of my favorites, but that vertical Arky would be bad to the bone, I'm sure, up there.
Yeah. So that's just one that I had tied up, hoping I was going to get on that bite on Pickwick, and didn't really happen. In the fall, I'm sure other times it would be good. I thought he's like, why? Just is like you need some green pumpkin brown bass tech jigs. Yeah, that's my hand tie and my own bass tech tungsten jigs. So that's a tungsten head too. Let's see what else is going on here. Do you throw jerkbaits much? And do you like a rogue? Or what is your jerkbait?
So I throw them all. I do. I change them up. I throw 4 or 5 different ones. If I'm really just jerkbait fishing, Grand Lake's a big jerkbait lake. It has been forever. The Rogue is where it all started there for us. Of course, it's got a little more watercolor. But, I feel like the Rogue's got a little more dead action to it. I hate casting it just like everybody else, but sometimes when the water's cold or the fish are sluggish, that mega bass and some of the newer modern jerkbaits, even if you just barely hit them, if they got a real live hard twitch, and that other one's just real kind of soft turn with the Rogue, and I like that at times. I like that big stick a lot that McClellan built. It's a good jerkbait. I like the mega bass just like everybody else does. But if we're all jerking, man, like 19 out of 20 guys are all throwing the same jerkbait. So I like to throw something a little different, but that stupid thing catches a lot of fish, and there's some Lucky Crafts that I like. I've got some old school Lucky Crafts that I still throw that I caught fish on. They used to make a color called crack, and I got my head kicked in one time by that color sitting right next to a buddy of mine in a tournament. We both ran to the same group of fish, and Larry and I did. It was a team tournament, and they showed us what was there. Kippy Morrow, I'll never forget that. Man, they freaking unloaded on them. And at the end of the day, I had to ask him, I was like, dude, what is that jerkbait? He says, crack. I was like, no joke, it's crack. What is it? He goes, no, seriously, it's called crack.
Isn't that the one that kind of had some like scales on the back that were like, I mean, this is not it, but it had a pattern like that where it had like those hand plasts. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was kind of gray and had a little pattern to it, and it had almost a chartreuse kind of glimmer to the side. But
the details, they had like hand placed like scales in the back like that. Yeah, I remember that. And then I think they came out with a chartreuse crack later. It was like a skeet color or something like that.
It was. Yes, that's correct. Yep.
I'm a bit of a bait junkie.
Are you?
CG says he'll give you $400 for a really small roll of that material.
When I quit fishing in 10 years, I'm going to put it all on eBay and I'm going to sell it.
That's your retirement plan.
It'll sell for more than any other baits I got. I just be selling the rubber.
One question I got on Instagram is there anything else in there? Are you working on any other baits, any other projects, something with Big Bites, other companies? What, or anything you can talk about?
Yeah, I've got some ideas, and I am working on some stuff. I actually talked to a guy yesterday, I believe, about designing another bait with Big Bites. So I do see that another one of those is coming down the pike, hopefully. I enjoy doing that process because it's kind of how my brain works anyway. I try to find something that works better than what we're already using. It's kind of the mechanical part of my brain. And I enjoy that process. Big Bite was great to work with. Scott and everybody involved was super helpful. Those guys have just been doing it for so long and know so much that it's pretty easy for me to plug and play with them. So yeah, I've got some stuff coming down the pike. Definitely. I've got a hard bait company that I've been talking with, and I've got some stuff here on my desk right now for them. So we've been talking about a little bit as well. So
it helps when the BFE apparently is pretty good. I mean, obviously don't know the numbers, but from what I can gather, it's been a pretty good success coming out of the gate. I got to think they're pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
I
mean, they're absolutely happy with it. It's been a success so far. Like I say, the only thing that's really held it back, in my opinion, is just that it was, the wrong time of year, but it's coming. It's definitely coming. I just have a tremendous amount of confidence in that bait. I mean, I know what it's going to do. I've flipped it enough that I know it catches them. Dude, I mean, that thing freaking catches them. I ain't kidding. I ain't just selling a bait. Like that sucker will catch a fish. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see some guys win some tournaments and text me, and I'm sure a lot of it will be private because it'll be one of those deals a lot of guys won't want to talk about right off the bat.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like you're the kind of guy that throws a lot of baits. You have your sponsor baits, and you obviously, but what are one of your favorite baits from a company you don't work with that I don't know?
Well, I have nothing to do with Chatterbait. I throw it a lot.
Yeah.
And I like the jackhammer just like everybody else.
Are you a swim-on guy, or do you like a different trailer for your Chatterbait?
So same thing was with my jig. It depends on action and stuff. But yeah, there's some different trailers that I like. Sometimes I like the vertical. The swim-on is a wonderful Chatterbait trailer. Then there's also trailers that I like whenever I lay them horizontal to kind of keep the bait a little bit more weedless around wood in different situations. So I changed that too. And it affects how that bait kind of planes out and makes it a little bit more weedless or, different things. So sometimes the action. But that swim on, man, it came on this spring and like everybody wanted them, and for good reason. It was a really, really, really good trailer.
Yeah, I remember you guys talking about that at, was it maybe Neely Henry? Where you were talking about going around that thick grass that you needed a cross style trailer, something that would protect the hook so it wouldn't roll and catch on.
I was throwing it the first day of the tournament, and I caught a pretty good spot, like a 3-pounder on it. And man, I had it on fluorocarbon because the water really wasn't stained enough to throw braid. And like I said, with the pressure of that lake and then what we do to them, so I really wanted to be throwing fluorocarbon, but it would get hung up, and I got aggravated. At the end of the day, I was talking to Scott. And it was actually Scott. It was like, dude, what are you using for a trailer? And he was the one. Of course, he's from Florida, and he's Scott Martin, but he was like, you need to try this trailer. He's like, it'll make all the difference in the world. It has nothing to do with getting a bite. It's just a matter of the fact that it lays horizontal and keeps that hook standing up. So when you come over a limb, it doesn't,
just like, something like a speed crawl or something. Right?
Absolutely.
It will keep the bait horizontal, and it's going to, the grass is going to ride off the side of that, whereas a swim on or a fluke or or the original Chatterbait trailer, right? It's not going to protect your hook, right?
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I use a lot of baits. I use a lot of different stuff.
You're more so you're going to worry about what's going to catch the fish more so than whether it's your. So, is there another bait you like from Big Bite for flipping other than the BFE, and what situation? Is there something that you like with more action in certain situations, or?
I like the new kamikaze crawl is somewhat like BFE. It's a ringed bait, but yet it's got a lot of flapping action. It's one that I use a lot for a jig trailer as well. I like flipping it. It's got a really, really good action to it. Rojas is fighting frog. I'll be real honest with you. Before I was with Big Bite, it wasn't a bait that I ever really thought much about or paid much attention to. And then once I was with Big Bite, a couple of shows that I'd worked and some stuff, just guys coming around and buying baits and talking to them, fishermen. Dude, that thing's like, them guys catch them on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, I better pay a little closer attention to this. So then I started fishing with it, and I see why. It's got a lot of really cool characteristics to it too, and it is a great bait. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's a good one.
Nice. You mess with glide baits at all?
Say that again.
Do you mess around with glide baits or swim baits at all?
Yeah, I play with a lot of swim baits, but the glide bait deal, man, I just can't. I've tried. I've got a friend here in Oklahoma that's really, really good with it. I specifically make sure that I fish with him once or twice a year to where we go do it. And I think that, you know, it's good for a lot of things, but tournament fishing, I don't know, man. And I'm a risk taker. That thing's a huge risk. And probably the worst part is that you get to watch a bunch of them and they don't eat it. So when they do, it's great. On days that they commit, like it seems like every bass in the lake commits, but then you have a lot of other days where they don't. So in the position that I'm in and the field that I'm in, it's just not a everyday tool for me. I know there's some guys on tour that do it, but I'm just not one of those guys. I have to. It's too hard for me to catch what I can catch anyway. I don't need to be wasting hours trying to catch something on a glide bait. Swim bait, yeah. Absolutely, dude. I'm all about them. I love them.
So what do you like for a tournament situation? What kind of swim baits?
Any of the hollow bellies I like a lot. I like them rigged a lot of different ways: open hook, belly hook, belly weighted. I was one of the first ones. I was 2007. I say I was one of the first ones. I was one of the first ones that when the Elite Series went out to California, we went to Clear Lake, and Steve Kennedy won that event on that Huddleston. But Chris Lane and I were having breakfast the day before the first day of practice. So it would have been the day before we started practice. And it was in that little town there that Clear Lake's in, and there's this really awesome tackle store right next door. So we got done eating breakfast, and we walk into this tackle store. Dude, and this whole wall is nothing but bass tricks. The whole damn wall. And Chris Lane was like, what are those? We'd never seen one, And the guy just was like, y'all don't know what those are? We're like, nah, I've never seen that. He's like, those are bass tricks. Well, that's where it all started. And as far as the whole country knowing about them, right. That event, and then we all the guys are on the Elite Series then, dude, we all loaded up with hundreds of thousands of dollars of baits before we left California and brought them back to the East. And we knew that bass tricks would play. Like, it wasn't too big. Even back then, it didn't seem like it was too big. It seemed big. Like now, it doesn't even seem that big, but back then it seemed big. But we knew it would play, and it did.
Yeah, that's cool. Switching gears here, I guess. What you have a go-to finesse bait when times are required? Which I feel like you're a little more open to finesse baits than you used to be.
Oh yeah, much more. I like drop shotting. I'm big on that new Ned rig. I caught a lot of fish this year in the fall during the Bassmaster on a Ned. I caught them on a Ned at Cherokee, Louisville. Hell, dude, I caught a limit at Louisville. I was like ready to celebrate. And a lot of that was due to the Ned rig. What else? That's really, I still only have usually 2 spinning rods in my boat at all times. Like, that's max 2.
You might need more than 2 when you get up on the northern swings.
Yeah. But I'm just saying in general, traveling the country. Dude, you say that, and I still may not carry more than 2. I may throw a third one in, but that'll be it. Like, dude, don't forget, Christie won St. Clair with a bait caster in his hand. Like,
I'm not saying you need it, but
you can still do it, especially once we start talking about fishing deeper. Like, I've never been on the St. Lawrence, but once we get below 20 foot or so, when we start moving from that 3/8 to half-ounce weight on a drop shot, pitch that sucker out there on a bait caster.
Sure.
We're talking about a big tube, sniping them and stuff, bait caster. Like, I know you guys use those spinning rods, but some of it's not necessary anymore because you can throw so far with a bait caster now, And I don't know.
I'm a big bait caster for a tube. for sure. But like a Ned or a drop shot. The only reason I say that is like if you happen to be on a really good drop shot or Ned rig, you just might want multiples rigged up so you're not fussing with them when you're on a good drift or something. So that might be the reason to have like when Justin Lucas, like, I mean, this was an every fish counts, which is a little bit different, but I mean, he literally had 6 rods identical rigged up so that if he ever got one like twisted up, he would just pick it up, you know what I mean, like or catch a big one, you just switch. So
yeah, that's a good reason to have more than 2 or 3 for sure. And you know, you got to remember that I'm not thinking about drifting. I haven't drift fished in I don't know how long.
I'm just saying, like, or you just like, you know, you start talking about braid to leaders and having to retie a leader, and it's like, well, do I want to retie my, you know, I mean, we're all getting pretty fast at that. In the heat of the moment, though, it's just nice to be able to pick another one up.
Absolutely, 110%.
This is an interesting question. Charles asked. He's like, do you think the chatterbait's ever going to lose its fish catching power sometime?
Yeah.
With the vibration being so distinct, you'd think these fish would really start to get. I mean, I think they have to some degree, but I think it is a question that but it's still. I mean, it still gets them. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting that it hasn't lost it faster. In my opinion, what do you think?
I think that it's definitely lost some. I mean, you're like me. You remember when it first came out, and Brian Thrift was a co-angler and was just freaking smashing them. It was the strongest bait that had come out at the time, kind of like an A-rig, and anything else came out new. So it's not as strong as it once was. There's no doubt it'll lose its luster. I mean, it'll fall into a category like a spinnerbait at some point. I mean, you know, there's not many guys can catch them on a spinnerbait on a consistent basis anymore, and that used to be Kevin Van Dam's wheelhouse, right? So when he was spinnerbait and he was young and he dominated bass with a spinnerbait, those days are gone. Like you can't do that anymore. Not the way he did it.
I think the one thing maybe different though is the chatterbaits. It will blow out, and you have a little more natural erratic action than some of the other baits, which I think maybe helps it maybe have a little more staying power.
Yeah. Dude, I can't hardly think of a bait that hasn't eventually faded.
Sure.
I'm not saying they won't continue to catch fish. They will, but
come back to the pack for sure.
I guess a crankbait, you know, really hasn't faded. They've been catching them on that stupid thing forever. Of course, we just have so many different variables of it, you know, at different depths, and they see at different speeds and different everything. But, you know, the lipless crankbait's not what it once was. I think everything just kind of finds its time and place, including the A-rig, right? The A-rig's not what it once was.
Yeah, I think there's something about, like, there's, like, this is my theory. There's fish in lakes. I mean, like, fish are a little bit like people, right? Like, there's people that like steak. There's, like, people that like chicken. There's people that like seafood, right? Like, fish probably, some are more aggressive. Some are more passive, right? They're probably, like, genetically will respond to things that thump harder, things that are flashy. I mean, there's certain fish, and I think when we come out with a new bait, we tap into a certain fish, like a population of fish that hasn't been shown that, right? And that, like, once we go through there and whack on them, and you have delayed mortality, and they get educated, and right, and then they spawn out, and like, right, you remove those from the pool, right? I think that's, I don't think it's necessarily the fish like see it and they remember. I think it's like we end up like harvesting the fish that are teed into that, and then those fish are gone. And then it's like, I don't know, that's just one other way to look at it, I think.
I know that I've often felt like that they pass it down through their DNA not to eat that anymore. I swear, it's like, you know, we know that group of fish is dead and gone, right? Like the ones we used to catch with a salt crawl. Okay, think about that. That was a great flipping bait at one time, dominant, great. And that thing, you know, today is nothing, and for a reason, you know, good reason. But, God, that thing was good, you know. And those fish are dead that were eating it. Like, so nobody's seen it since then. So why can't you catch them on it now? I can't answer that question. Maybe it's what you say. Maybe they get keyed into it, and we harvest those fish, and
those fish are just genetically pulled from the system that were enough to eat a salt crowd. I don't know.
I do.
And bait, right? That was another thing.
It
That's
is.
another
Yeah.
bait.
The A-rig, man, I do think it hurt some of our fisheries. You know, we belly hooked them, and we did all kinds of things to giant fish in our lake and all our lakes. And I do think that bait had a profound effect on some of our fish and fish populations and different things around the country. I'm not against throwing it. I like throwing it around home. It's not something that I just want to go do. If I can catch them on something else, I would prefer to.
Sure, it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed the cut on Pickwick, and I went to Wilson, and I didn't have any with me because it was not legal in the Bass Nation tournament that I fished. And I was sitting there throwing a single Kitech next to a guy in a bass cat, and we were chatting, and he was just like, I mean, he was catching mostly whites, but I mean, like he was catching them on every cast, and I was like, every like 20th cast I'd catch one. And I was like, he's like, here's one I caught off the bottom, you can have, and I tied it on and put some new heads on it, and like first cast, boom. So it was just like, it was like when it's the deal, it's like the deal. But like I hadn't thrown one in forever, and like only for like 3 hours, I was like, man, what like feel like somebody beat me up, like like, and then it was like on the deck, and it was catching all my other rods. I was like, this thing is a pain in the ass. Like it's.
Dude, I throw more rods in the lake throwing that thing. Like, I don't know what it is, but you know when you fire it out there and it catches like halfway through the cast, it pulls the rod out of my hand. I've actually lost a rod doing it. It's done that to me forever, and I never get used to it. Like, it still continues to this day to yank a rod out of my hand when I fish with it. But
all the more reason to use $15 Chinese reels if you're going to throw it in the lake.
Oh, I get a lot about that, boy. Mention that one time I mentioned the Chinese reels on BTL, and like to this day, people message me and they're like, well, where can I find those? And you try to help them. So you're like, you'll message back eBay, and then they're like, where on eBay? What, and at that point I'm like, dude, if you can't Google up $19, $20 reel on eBay, like you're on your own. You
need to have like a hotkey. Like a press default, like that just pastes the standard response.
Yeah. Well, they change. That's the problem, is that they change. They change. Like the reels that I got the first 2 or 3 times, like I've not seen those again. You can't find them. The reels that I bought last year, you can't find them. I will say that the last year's batch was not near as good as the first 2 or 3 years batches were. But still, they're $18.99 or $19.99. So my line costs more than that stupid reel does, and I change it on a daily basis. So if that reel gets too out of whack, I just throw it in trash.
Nice. Favorite topwaters? I think you said buzzbait earlier. Are there any topwaters, other ones you like? Do you like the ploppers? Are you a walking bait guy?
Yeah, I like the spook baits, but I really do like a buzzbait a lot. I like the ploppers too. I was big on that when that first came out. There's another bait that they've kind of gotten used to. I like all topwaters. I guess it just depends on the situation. When we were at Hartwell this year, I really like all those blueback herring topwater baits, that are the Ima sticks and the bigger stuff, the shower blows and pencil popper style baits. Those are really cool to throw. A lot of fun, like especially if you can get on one of those places and they hadn't been beat to death by 500 of us going over them. But once they kind of get clued in, by the end of the week, you're generally throwing something real small. Kind of takes the fun out of it.
A funny story about that. So Hartwell was on the original Elite Series schedule this year, wasn't it? Or Clarksville, one or two. And I had an a Paycheck the One bone crusher. You know what that is, right? It was their version of it's like the big stick, but the bone crusher. But Paycheck, so that was Bub Tosh's thing, and they went out of business, and it was a really popular bait. And
I have some of his stuff, but I don't have that one. Is that the one that's just basically a copy off of the spook bait? It's not, is it? You're talking about
so the Repo Man was the Vixen.
The Repo Man, yes.
The bigger version, which was the One, and so it was more like a pencil popper style bait. And I was like, the situations that I would throw this up here are so rare, and I need to rebuild my motor this year, so I put it up on eBay, and it sold for $220 to a Jay Williamson in South Carolina.
Really? He was on eBay looking for them.
Yeah, so there you go.
Wow.
So this is a good time. I want to talk about this. So I thought it was really interesting because I've kind of been watching you for a while. I'm kind of a bass junkie. I fish tournaments. I like to follow the tours. And I think your evolution in the last decade is a really interesting one. Is that you've kind of always you have your roots in Oklahoma power fishing. And I think you talked about some DTL that, you rewind 5 years, the thought of you filming or anybody in your boat filming anything would have been a hard no.
Mm-hmm.
And the last year or two, you really flipped to the fact that, you started this YouTube channel that's been super successful. And I want to talk to you about that and kind of talk about why and how that, evolution happened. And also I feel like Hanger was telling me he saw you catching fish in 70 feet of water on table rock on a spinning rod. So I think there's just, you've kind of went through an interesting change. Maybe just talk a little bit about that. I think it's really cool.
Early in my career, it was just about catching bass, and the sponsor side of it was a nuisance and an aggravation. I feel like that we all sell this idea that's not true. As far as the money that's made, the majority, and I mean this, the majority of the guys on tour, there's no way they can make their house payments, truck payments, entry fees, kids' health care, just basic daily life. You can't do that off sponsor money. And I learned that early on. And for me, it was like, man, you had to make a choice. Am I gonna just keep trying to chase that unicorn to get that one or two, title sponsors, which they do exist and guys do get them, but you have them a year, maybe 2 years. If you're really lucky, you get them 3 years and then they're gone and you got to go chase another one. Or am I going to work, do something else when I come home and try to make money to support my family and do my part? And by 2006, I'd realized that I was never going to be Kevin Van Dam. And unless you're one of those 1%ers, and so I'm not trying to crush anybody's dreams. If somebody's watching this or a kid, they do exist, but you better be one of those 1%ers and you better be able to do it for many, many years. You can't, when I say by 1%, it's like everybody out there can fish at an extremely high level, extremely high. And those 1%ers are one notch better. And I don't know what makes them that way. I room with them. They're some of my best friends in the world. They're great guys, but they've got something in their brain that they make the right decision 9 times out of 10. And they make most of the money in this sport. They do. So I went through that where I just kind of had to make that decision. And that was really the decision that I went with. Now, I will tell you that I think that it was the right decision for me 100%. Because I'm still in the sport and I'm still in the industry. And I think it's because of what I did. The decisions that I made then has a lot to do with that. I've worked, I was a plumber for 13 or 14 years from the age of 18 until I quit to fish the Elite Series. And then when I was fishing the Elite Series, I would come home, I'd do side jobs, do this, that. Then I went to work in the oil and gas as a landman running title. I did that for 7 years. And then I started doing some real estate stuff and trying to do things to find some type of business where I could earn income and not have to be there every single day.
Right.
And to do that seemed more profitable to me than chasing a unicorn, or at least I felt like it was a unicorn. Okay. You a little bit get some pushback, right? So I wasn't 22 years old. I wasn't standing on the stage with 2 trophies on each shoulder at the time. Quite frankly, my Oklahoma accent's probably a little too thick and too much for some companies, I wasn't the guy. It was very obvious to me, they tell you without telling you. Does that make sense? And I had children and I couldn't feed them. I mean, they're not going to grow up eating spinnerbaits. So I had to come up with money. So that was the choice, the decision that I made and why. And so therefore I didn't need a whole lot of marketing time, TV,
right.
social media, like all that. Of course, social media was just coming on, right. At that time, and not a lot of people really knew what the animal was. But so I rocked past that. But then when I came back to the FLW tour, started having some success, and won in Okeechobee and things kind of started rolling for me. Well, by this point, one, I have a lot of connections because I've been doing this a long time and I know a lot of people. Two, one of the main reasons I came back after I'd quit was like, I had to make a life-changing decision. I mean, I really did. And it was this, basically. I'd quit. I'd been at the Elite Series. I've been back home working for 3 or 4 years. I started fishing team stuff again. And, like, I was really back into it. Like, that fire was burning again that we all have as bass fishermen. And, financially, I thought I could do this, but I would be better off financially if I didn't, if I just stayed and worked and we did, all these other things. But like at the end of the day, man, this is what I want to do. So
what's going to make you happy?
Right. So like, I'm never going to be a millionaire off sponsors. I'm never, none of that's ever going to happen, but that's where I want to be. I want to be not just involved in the fishing part. I want to be involved in the whole thing. I want to be involved at ICAST. I want to be involved in bait design. I want to be involved in marketing companies. I want to be involved with Falcon, who I've known those people forever, from fishing in Oklahoma. And not one time have I ever put them on my jersey. I wanted to work with these people, and I mean, truly work with them, not just, hey, pay me a little bit of money and I'll, put a sticker on the side of my boat type deal. Like, I want a relationship. Because this is what I want to do. And I think that decision probably happened somewhat with my age, but like, we're not going to live forever, So when your time's up, how do you want to look back and go, how did you spend it? And this is right here, what we're doing right now is exactly how I want to spend my time. And so when I look back 20 years from now, dude, this is what I want to say I did. So that's probably why you see such a different version of me from when I was on the Elite Series to me now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was a really cool story. I mean, that hits home for sure. I totally get it.
Yeah. I mean, it truly is. And then the YouTube deal, that was totally by mistake, dude. Totally by mistake. Even I had gotten into the social media stuff. I'd gotten all that, and I was understanding that. Like, that part was important, and I was enjoying that, and I was starting to work with companies. But the YouTube deal was different. The YouTube started from FLW had created the rule that was going to be no more co-anglers. Well, once they created that, they realized, hey, we're going to have a problem filling marshals just to ride because we have so many guys. Like, the Elite Series can do it, but there's only 80 of them. Mm-hmm. With us, it's going to be harder because there's 170 of us. So we know we're going to have that void. So how are we going to address, controlling rules and things like that? So they came up with the rule that everybody had to run a camera. Well, at the time, I just like everybody else on the FLW tour, like, what the hell is a camera? What kind of camera? We're going to turn our phone on? What are we going to do? Go buy GoPros. So the first year of that was a huge learning experience, and you come back home, and we were just keeping the video for if Bill Taylor was to call and go, hey, you've been, written up for a rule violation. We want to see your camera, or your card. So we kept all that stuff. That's really all we kept it for. But you start getting all this footage from your day, and you have a good day, and you're like, hey, I want to see me catch that 7-pounder, So you start watching it, and you're like, hey, I've got all this footage already here. Like, why don't I use it for something? And so then that kind of grew, if that makes sense. And I became more comfortable with the cameras. I became more comfortable talking in front of the camera. I became, where you didn't feel like quite such an idiot, which I still do to this day. If I walk out in a parking lot and talk to my camera, I feel like an idiot. But it doesn't come natural. But I enjoyed it. And then the editing process was a complete nightmare in the beginning, and still is to this day, but not like it was. But man, I enjoy that part too. And so then I started learning more about cameras and started talking to Scott Martin and like learning from him. And I had a lot of friends that knew a lot about it. Matt Pangerack and Mark Jeffries at Bass Talk Live definitely helped me tremendously with the editing issues. I had to kind of evolve from a very elementary editing system from my phone and my iPad, whatever, just using free, iMovie or whatever, to where I needed some more and wanted to be able to do some more stuff. So I went to Vegas Pro, and I went to Vegas because that's what they use, and I knew that they were right down the street and could help me. But I'll tell you, that learning curve was steep, son. Panger got some phone calls at night that I was not happy, but I got it. I got over it, and I'm getting faster every day. But I enjoy it, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that has helped me be successful in YouTube early on. Because this year, I mean, dude, I'm fixing to hit 10,000 subscribers, and I've only been there 1 year. I couldn't be more appreciative the feedback that I get from it is just, it's overwhelming. YouTube's been a great deal for me. Like, it's just kind of helped me grow and become, like you say, like somebody else. It's just it's another platform for me to be able to work, but it's the most enjoyable platform that I've ever worked on in fishing, if that makes sense. For me personally, I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, and I think you do some cool stuff, and I've been actually really impressed. Like, the thought of getting 10,000 subs in a year is pretty sweet. I'm pretty stoked when I like gained like 2,000 subs in a year. So one thing I want to highlight, and I don't know like if everybody has seen your stuff, but one of the series that I think, and I don't know, it's probably not your most popular, but I think this Hallman high school fishing is a really unique thing, and I think it's underrated what you're doing there. Maybe just you can probably describe it better than I can. Maybe just give a little.
It was an idea that I had early this year. So like I wanted to do a series. And so like everyone in YouTube, especially early in their YouTube, you know, we're just throwing paint on the wall to see what sticks. But this idea was just like you say, man, when it kind of came in my head, I really liked it. So it's basically a matchup between me and a high school kid. And I give them control of the boat, just like they're the pro and I'm the co-angler, and they can fish wherever they want. They can go wherever they want, and they get first cast and first shot at everything, just like it's a pro-am event. And it kind of gives me the opportunity to teach some of the co-angling ethics that go unwritten rules that kind of go unsaid in our sport, because that's where a lot of these kids are headed. You know, out of high school, they go to college, but there's going to be a lot of co-angler stuff if they go to BFLs or Federation or whatever. There's going to be a lot of co-angler situations for them going forward. So I like that mindset. I do teaching timeouts during the period, so I'm really trying to help the kids, you know, focus in on some things. Like with an hour or two into the day, I've seen a couple of things that I notice that they're doing mistakes. And so I call a teaching timeout, and I turn the camera on, and I explain to them, you know, what I see that they're missing, trying to help them have a better day. That kid right there learned really quick. And, but they do, you know, this one right here, that one right there on the left, those big fish, he was overlooking the grass bed. There wasn't very much grass on that lake, but where the grass was, there was giants in it. And by the end of the day, he'd figured it out. He went back, and I think he beat me at the very end because he catches like a 7 or 8 pounder. But really, it's not about. So we keep our 3 best fish, and at the end of the day, we have a gentleman's bet. Usually, they get a falcon rod if they beat me. And you know, it's a day with a kid. I'll tell you this: it was not my most successful videos on YouTube, and that part is disappointing to me to this day. And I don't really know why, but they were the most enjoyable videos for me to make. And let me say this right, they were the most enjoyable videos for me to shoot. Being involved in that day was the most fun that I had. Editing was I've got a lot of cameras going, and I've got a lot of footage, and so when I come back, they're the biggest, hardest thing to edit. They're kind of a monster there, but yeah, they did well, but they didn't just go over the moon like I hoped they would. I don't think I've got one more left. I filmed one in East Tennessee after we got done with one of the last opens, and I haven't released it yet. And I'm trying to get that out before 2021. So coming up the next couple of weeks. But that kid was phenomenal. He's probably one of the best fishermen I've been in a boat with. He's only 13 years old. I'm telling you, this little kid coming up the next one is freaking hammer. But the kids were all enjoyable. One of the kids that I fished against here in Oklahoma, he was a senior in high school. He's at Bethel now. You know, in Bethel, if you guys don't know, that's the powerhouse. That's like the Alabama of college fishing, you know, and he's over there now. So, you know, it's given me I've had some really, really good young fishermen in my boat this year and learned a lot. And I enjoy doing that with them.
Yeah, that's cool. I definitely wanted to borrow that this year locally here and kind of do some stuff. But like the COVID was so strict. I mean, like they really, like the schools, like our high school teams were not like, they were all virtual tournaments. So I just feel like I didn't think it was in the best political move to do it, but I definitely want to borrow that and do that with some local stuff here in Minnesota this summer. And you know, a few high school teams I already work with, and take some of those kids out and do something. I think it'd be really cool.
I think if the right person got it, or if it got in front of the right person, I mean, it would make a great TV show, a great YouTube series. I mean, it's really got a lot of upside to the idea of doing it that way. And it's a great opportunity for those young men to get in the boat and learn. And they learn a lot. And, they're young and they make quite a few mistakes, some of them. So a lot of it's the same thing over and over with a different kid. They just got a blind spot somewhere. And as soon as you correct that blind spot they have, it's amazing, dude. They're just like, they adjust quick. I mean, quick.
Sean O'Brien says, what's your best advice for college or high school kid?
My best advice to any of the kids that want to fish high school or college, rule number one is remember that you're there to have fun. Enjoy the process of what you're doing. Don't make it all about winning, losing. I got to catch a 20-pound bag. I want to win this, qualify for that. Like, just try to really enjoy the experience. I think that's the biggest thing I tell. I know that's what I tell my kids at Oklahoma and the high school kids that I work with and fish with. Like, that's number one. Like, I'm not saying that you can't work and try hard and want to do it. I'm just saying don't lose. Don't get so tight in a tournament day that it makes it to where it's unfun, if that makes sense. Because I see kids, they kind of get behind the 8 ball, and it's a long day and they don't understand that, and they haven't caught a fish in the first few hours, and they kind of get down, and then they're beating themselves up, and they're just too hard on themselves. Like, you got to remember why you're here to begin with is really you're here to enjoy yourself, have fun, and have fun with the process, and not getting bit for a couple hours is part of it.
Yeah. Cool. Oh man, so many good questions. Oh, I feel like I had something I was going to ask you, but then I kind of blanked. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that's a huge thing is, like, you don't want to be so casual that the kids are, like, dangling their feet in the water off the back of the boat. But, yeah, you don't want to be so mad and angry that you're, that's the one thing about fishing, right? There's still that, like, even in tournament mode, there's still something about being outside. There's nature. There's, you don't want to forget that and lose that in the process.
Well, I mean, it's just like high school sports of any kind.
Yeah.
High school football, high school basketball. Not everybody can be on the state champion team. Not everybody's going to be a 5-star kid being, picked up at Oklahoma's calling you on the phone and wants you to travel 5 states away to come play quarterback at the University of Oklahoma. Not everybody's going to get that. But there doesn't mean that there's not a million quarterbacks out here in the country playing high school football, because there are. And they're all, you got to have a good time and enjoy it. You know what I mean? I mean, we're all grown men, so we can see that looking back. But, when we were in high school, think about, if you played sports or if your buddy was sports or whatever, you know how hard you were on yourself, or how hard he was on himself. You kind of get what I'm saying. At some point, like, you want to be hard on yourself to get better. I'm not saying that. You want to try to improve as much as you can, but don't beat yourself into oblivion over it, because at the end of the day, you're doing this to have fun.
And there's more uncontrollables in this sport than there is in any of those sports you played on the field in high school. So,
yeah, and there's a lot of natural to this too. Mm-hmm. There just is, and it's just like in every other sport. This kid can jump higher, this kid can run faster, and for whatever reason, this kid over here seems to make the right decisions about catching a bass. He just does.
Yeah, some people are fishier than others. It's hard to explain.
100%.
Yeah, there's guys that, like, back in my club days, there was so many guys, like, they could regurgitate and tell you all the right things out of the Bassmaster magazine, as if, okay, it's cloudy, it's windy, I should be throwing a spit, like they could say all the things, but then when it came to fishing, they didn't get it done. You know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you're saying.
So let me just lighten it up. So, like, I guess you got any, like, is there anything, like, your traveling crew? I guess that was a pretty fun environment for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, what is there anything, like, a couple positives or a negative of traveling with a group, or the 20 times? It's like just maybe a couple anecdotes from the season.
That group that I traveled with this year, I know for YouTube purposes, was a huge positive. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a aspect of, like, we got a bunch of subscribers because of Scott. That actually didn't work that way. I actually thought we'd get a lot more rub off than we did, but for whatever reason, Scott's
core.
Yeah, is different than my core. And we kind of learned that with Andrew and Todd and I working together.
I
Todd,
think you
Todd,
three, I think
yeah,
Andrew, you and Todd had a lot of synergy.
we do. But even Todd and I are more like I'm talking about just our fan base, the people that like us, all right? Like we can't pick that. We turn it on and we answer questions and we kind of know who's following us. Andrew's just a little bit different than even mine and Todd's. Todd's and I seem to be very close to the same. Todd and I both have a very strong regional background. So like, you know, I've done a lot of Costas, Everstart, Strands, Opens in this region, Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas, Arkansas, and Todd has as well. So I think that was part of it. Andrew qualified for the Bassmaster Classic in college, you know what I mean? And he kind of just went straight to the national tour, and that's pretty much where he had stayed. So I think that's part of it. Todd and I are a little closer to age. Andrew's a little younger than us. That's part of it as well. But yeah, man, I mean, the positives, like we've all been friends for a long time. So this, like I say, for the YouTube part, it looks like, you know, it's like a new band together. But honestly, I've been friends. Well, today Scott released a video on YouTube that was actually a Discovery Channel video last year. He just released it today, and it's he and I fishing. And hell, we recorded that in, I think, 2018 in Oklahoma. So, I mean, we've been friends for a long time. Todd and I go back for, I mean, dude, I remember when I first met him and he was just starting to fish and he had a boat that would barely make it to his fishing back if it didn't catch on fire or blow up, or it was always something with that piece of junk. But, and I met Andrew through Todd probably somewhere around 2009 or 10. So, we've all known each other a long time and been friends a long time. So it was kind of cool to all get together and stay together. We learned a lot from Scott, from the side of creating video
process.
He's got a whole entourage that works and does his editing and stuff, but that dude has a work ethic that is extremely impressive. I say extremely, dude. I mean, he's at the top of the game because that dude works like no other. His personality that you see on video is who he is. So that aspect with the way I've kind of built my YouTube, and Todd too, and Andrew as well, is like we're ourselves. And what you see with Scott, that's really who he is. He's kind of a prankster and likes to joke and, you know, make people laugh. And but he's still a dude. His work ethic's insane. So yeah, we got a lot of positives out of that. Got a lot of positives just learning, you know, about how to shoot video, what kind of
how to structure your day, right? Like what do you like? Okay, if I'm gonna like do this, I need to like make time in the morning to do an intro. I need to like
and I'll be honest,
B-rolls. I need to like recap. I got to take time to like make a break at lunch and tell them what happened. You know what I mean? Like there's just
for a guy like me, it's still hard, and I still miss opportunities. And I know guys that watch my videos can tell, dude, I don't catch a 4-pounder and naturally turn to the camera in a tournament and talk. That is, I don't even think about it. Like I don't even remember that camera's in the boat. When I hook a 4-pounder, all I'm thinking is holy crap, I bet there's another one there and I want it. That's all I can think about is catching another 4-pounder. And I mean, I might not think about it all day. Not once. I don't even think about it till I've packed up, came home, put my card in my, you know, I'm fixing to make a video. And I'm like, dude, you just fished for 3 days and you didn't say one word to that camera. I'm guilty.
It's just harder on the editing, right? Because then you have to put more time in, and you see that a lot in your videos is that you do a lot of like recapping and voiceover at home because and you can do that, and it doesn't necessarily affect the final product, but it requires you to like double down on your time on the edit end.
100%. It takes a lot more time. And quite honestly, I like the way it looks. If I would do it on the water, I think Panger does a phenomenal job with his. He talks to his camera nonstop. But man, when I'm on the water, it's just the way that I've been engraved for so long. It's a hard habit to break. Man, I'm there for one thing only. My mind's on catching the fish, not on making a video. And you know, I've gotten better at it. Like I say, I enjoy this process. So when I come home, I know that's my other part. Scott's great at it, you know. I still like, I can't wear a chesty. I like chesties. I like the angle and the things that it's giving me. I see the bonuses of that. And like, I can wear one now if we go fish a high school fishing matchup or if we go make a YouTube video. But for me to put one of those chesties on a tournament, dude, like
I'm going to show you something, Brad.
It would drive me crazy.
No. So this is what you need. The other thing that's great about a chesty is the audio you get from it.
That's correct. That is correct.
So I have this, it's called a snap mount. It's kind of a mess in my bag. But all you do, so you don't have to wear that big strap. So you have this lanyard that goes around your neck.
Okay.
And this is a magnet. So it goes under your shirt. And then you have this that just sticks to it.
Okay.
So you don't have the straps and everything over like your shirt or your vest. You just put this under your t-shirt and your hoodie in the morning, and then you get out in the water, you just sticks right there.
How heavy is that metal that camera's mounted to? Because it's got to have metal if it's a magnet.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean,
but it'll go through a sweatshirt.
Yeah, I mean, you can't wear it through a jacket, but you can wear it through a hoodie.
Okay. Yeah, what's that called?
It's called a snap mount.
Snap mount.
It's like $30 maybe.
Really? I'll check into that. Yeah.
I'll send you a text or a DM or something. But that's what I do. And then you don't if you want, if you're wearing a Sunline hoodie or whatever, right? You don't have straps over your jersey and everything, and
right.
And if you want to peel off, you pop it off, and you want to strip down to your long sleeve Sunline shirt or your AFCO, just pop the camera off, take your hoodie off, and then the magnets under that one.
Yeah, I'm going to check into that. I think I could try that for $30, see if I like it or not. I'm looking for any kind of option there. I still don't know if I could wear it in a tournament though, just for the simple fact. Sure. Dude, I just don't want that camera in my wheelhouse when I'm swinging. But I do agree, it makes the audio. It's got a lot of benefits. I wish we could figure out another angle. That's another thing that I like. I guess if Scott hadn't figured it out yet, maybe there's not one that really exists.
I get tired of people putting a session up here, but that's still those are still, they feel heavy. I don't know. I can't get used to having.
I just want something that's in front of me, looking back instead of behind me all the time, because it's always your back that it's filming.
Sure.
Maybe a pole that comes off the front of your trolling motor or something. And
I think the thing is if you're going to mount something that far up on your boat, better be a really solid mount because that's going to take the beating. You put something on the dash, I mean, sure it bounces, but you can't grab it. You put something on the bow. Yeah, it's.
Well, what I'm thinking is it's on the trolling motor, so it's only way out there in front whenever the trolling motor goes in the water. But then when you pull the trolling motor back up, it would be, down the side.
That thing's going to be horizontal, and then when you're running down the lake, it's like this lever, right? It's.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I'd like to get a different camera angle. It's not just from our backside every single time, but I don't want to start running 3 and 4 cameras fishing tournaments either, because that's just more editing as well. I don't enjoy, so let's talk about this since we're on YouTube. I don't enjoy the tournament videos. Has nothing to do with the information. I don't want to share anything like that.
You don't enjoy making them, or you don't enjoy?
I don't enjoy making them. I don't think they're very good videos. Digesting. I don't like digesting them. I don't watch anybody else's. I think they're the worst thing ever. I like the videos that you just make here at the house, like the last 2 or 3 that I've dropped, where it's about a topic or something, or like what we're doing right now, or I like doing stuff here at the house. I like going and doing a little series where I just go to these little city lakes. They're public lakes with boat ramps on them. Anybody can go to. I like going to them and dropping a boat and turn on a camera and fish for 8 hours and see what I can smash out of there. And sometimes I have a lot of success doing that. And, it ruins some little lakes. Guys get mad at me, but dude, that's why I'm doing it. So people don't have to drive, and it pertains to people who live right where you live. Not everybody's got to drive to some big giant lake where all the tournaments go out to catch a lot of fish. You can do it just fishing right there by the house. But it's a big deal here. I like it. I enjoy those videos more than I enjoy just making tournament videos.
Sure. Yeah, I'm kind of mixed. I definitely have some people that say they love tournament videos. Yeah, so it's. But I think it is a little harder to do a good tournament video, right? Because if you're going to add value, right, you need to share some info, right? And so, if you're not going to take the time and set it up and stop, there's a big difference if you can stop and give the interjection and help them explain what decision you made and what you did and why you did this, then I think it can be a good video. But if it's just, blast off 10 hook sets, right, video, it's.
The other thing is there's just so much of it out there. That's what a lot of guys are doing. Right. And I sure don't think of myself as being innovative or anything like that, but I do try to come up with things that are like the high school fishing is something that somebody hadn't done. you know, I don't know. The other day I got the idea to put that stupid Santa Claus hat on my head and, you know, go down to my local tackle store here and make a video about, you know, Christmas baits. But I like that idea. You know, it was different. It was something that wasn't out there yet. And, you know, it was fun to shoot. Actually, it brought me to a new series that I was thinking about for next year. I just spilled my beans right here. Somebody will probably copy it and take it already. But I travel so much around the country. I did the high school deal this year, and I'd like to throw some more paint on the wall going forward for next year. But I was thinking about doing a series called Tackle Store Wars. There are some just astronomically awesome private
places, yeah.
tackle stores that are on some of these world famous lakes, like the waterfront at Gunnersville. You know, at one time Bassmaster was doing some stuff in their magazine where they would talk about 10 different tackle stores in the country or rate them or something. But, you know, next year on the Opens, I'm going to be all over the United States. And I think that'd be a really cool deal if I could get the owner of each store to spend, you know, a couple of hours. We just go in, look at the store, talk about the background, the history, and then go through, you know, the top 10 baits that sell there on that lake.
Find some gems discontinued. You find some old.
Oh yeah, so we can do, yeah, you can do the part where they've got all the antique stuff and the stuff that everybody wants and nobody can get.
Or just like you go to this lake and it's like, man, they crush them on deep crankbaits here, right? You go here and this lake is about this kind of.
Yeah, so you get your best sellers of each place, and then you also are going to be able to get, you know, what's your most expensive lure in the store? I mean, I'm wondering if that series would do well.
I can tell you that Baxter, the bait man, who's kind of a bait junkie in the Kentucky Lake area, he does very well talking about baits, and he's done some trips to some unique tackle stores that have been pretty popular. So
yeah,
obviously you'd have your own spin to it and your own angle.
Yeah, because you know I'm not a bait junkie. I really am not. I throw a lot of different baits, but my baits basically just have to do with what I think I catch fish on. But yeah, I think it would be a fun series to do.
Although you might lose money, spend all that time at tackle stores, you might end up buying more than me.
That's fact. That's fact. Jeez, my garage is already. I could probably do one in there.
Yeah, nice. I do think the cool thing, I think that the key to a tournament video, I think that people, like, if you build the relation, if you only do tournament videos, I don't think that's really like, right. I think what you have, like, when you have a mix of videos and your other videos build that relationship with your viewers and your fans and your subscribers, where they're emotionally invested in you and they want to see you do well, then I think the tournament videos are kind of the payoff that they join that journey for you. But
that's true. You know, and I see that a lot with Panger's videos. Like I say, I think he does a remarkable job with his tournament videos. I think his are some of the best out there, quite honestly. And some of them are spend a lot more money to have them produced and everything else. But I think his are really, really good. I just feel like so many guys do them, and it's just hard to find another spin of a way to do them than to just name, here we are, day 3 of Lay Lake. I don't know, that doesn't excite me. But I will tell you this, my fan base likes them. So I got to keep making them, and I understand that. But like I find myself not even wanting to edit them when I come home. I want to work on something else.
Although if you were hosting a blue trophy, you'd be more motivated, I think, to tell that story. It's probably like that's the thing is, like, when you go out and you have a 67th place finish in a $100 tournament, that's when you're really not motivated to make a tournament video, right?
Yeah, dude. Imagine I went the wrong way. If I could have that YouTube camera on when I won those two, and I had all that video and I was YouTubing at the time, how much fun that would have been. Like, dude, I don't even need a magazine writer to call me or a TV. Like, I can promote myself on this deal. Like, I got it. We're going to make Castledine was talking to me. Like, if I won one of them, dude, I'd have a video popping every hour for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's like, man, I made a good decision there. Man, that was smart. You see me pick that spinnerbait up and catch 5 pounds?
No, but yeah, I wish I had a camera rolling on some of those days. Some of those days were really special. One of those trophies was at in Georgia on Lake Lanier, and I had 24-pound spotted bass. And like when that day happened, as it was happening, I knew, like, you're never going to have a day like this again the rest of your life with this species of fish. You know, it's just it was stupid.
Which I think, and like for you at that time, kind of like surprised some people. Like, I don't think anybody was surprised that you went to Florida and you caught a bunch of fish flipping, right? Like, but to go to there and catch mostly spots and like that was like, wow, Hallman maybe does know more than one thing, right? Like I think people were impressed at the time, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd be remiss if there's been a few people. So I think a few people said they liked the Tackle Wars ideas. So positive response from the people that hang out here. What you run Garmin? You've been playing with Livescope. Like, what are your thoughts? Livescope. Is it something that's growing on you? Like, is it besides crappies? Like, what are you overall like? How much do you use it? Like, do you lean on it? Is it a specialty tool for you? Is it something you're still trying to grasp all the ways you can use it?
Yeah, it's a huge tool for me. I mean, if I sit here and try to play like it was just something that's in my boat and it's a sponsor product and it's great and it's wonderful, dude, I'd be pulling the blinds down over your eyes. It's massive for me. You were talking about Panger, talking about me fishing at Table Rock an 80 foot. We were up there for 3 days and I caught and we caught them good. Caught a lot of fish and it was a little tournament deal. And I think on the second day we had second or third biggest bag of the day. 75, 85 foot of water. And some of those fish in 75, 80 foot of water, some of them in 25, 30 in the middle of the water column, but that is all because of Livescope. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for a lot of guys. I mean, you're seeing guys win tournaments, right? Lake Fork, and you're going to continue to see tournaments won with that technology. There's kind of a technology war going on right now. Obviously, I saw where Lowrance dropped, and also you saw where all their pro staff guys are dropping videos and stuff about it. And I haven't seen it yet, but it's better than the one that they had before, I'm sure. And Humminbird's got theirs coming, and it may even be, on 360. I don't know, but that technology is there, and they're having those wars. I know that not when I've been on BTL, but I watch sometimes, just like you guys do. And I watch the comments, and if Livescope comes up, there's a lot of people really, they're like, well, yeah, that's great if you can afford it, but man, I wouldn't stay on that bandwagon too long. That's all I'm saying. Cause, that sucker makes a difference. It's, I understand the price is an issue, but that son of a gun catches fish, man. And it's not just guys trying to sell them. Like, it's legit.
I darn sure made the latest Humminbird purchase that I made would be compatible when they come out with it.
Yeah.
I made sure that unit I bought was going to be ready for it. Let's put it that way. So.
Do you think the Hummingbird's going to be as good or better, or like we don't know?
I think this initial version that comes out is going to be comparable to what Garmin, like it's going to be that same style transducer. I do think they are working on a live 360, but I don't think that's what's coming out next, if that makes sense.
Right.
Not that I'm like an insider on Humminbird by any means. So
no, I've talked to the people that I thought would know, and they're like, dude, we have no idea. I don't see Humminbird dropping something that's not good though.
I think it'll be very functional, and I don't think he'll be. I'm sure one of them, whatever. I don't know. One of them is going to rise to the top, but I think this current generation that's going to come out, they're all going to be very functional. I don't think they're going to look like 2 years ago Lowrance version, which kind of was a little rushed, right?
It was. Yeah, I mean, it just didn't seem to work as well with guys I talked to. I did talk to a couple of their guys. Jacob Perosnik told me that he definitely can catch fish off of it. So Perosnik could catch a fish out of my bathtub in there too. But he convinced me that he for sure can see what he's looking at, and his viewing distance was shorter than mine, the Garmin's, but he definitely could use it to his advantage.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't unusable, but it just wasn't as refined, right? It just
for sure. And there's some guys that are a lot better with it than others. I don't put myself in that top tier category, but I definitely have come a long ways in the last 2 years with it. There's no doubt about that. I'm doing some pretty remarkable stuff with it. But I do love it. I love the technology, and I think that's where the sport's headed. I mean, we're talking about, earlier I was talking about getting an edge, in this sport by using a certain kind of boat, blah, blah, blah. But, the real edge right now is technology. That's really where it's at. I mean, that's the day and age we're in, right? I mean, Best big all over the United States, whether it's computers or making videos or the deal you just showed me to clip your camera on. I mean, that's where we are. That's where we get edges is technology. And sport of bass fishing is no different. That's honestly where the edges probably are going to be for the next few years going forward. Technology wars and using that technology to benefit you the best way you can. I mean, that's why you see the guys running 2 and 3 different brands and things of that nature, is because every brand does something a little bit better than the other. So why not run all 3? So that's what they do.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been sweet, Brad. I mean, we already went over 2 hours. I don't know if that feels like that, but I don't want to keep you all night. Hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
I told you when I was messaging, we'd probably get a little geeky and just get way into the weeds on different topics. But so for those that are tuning in late, you can always watch the replay on YouTube. There's always the podcast version that'll be available. I'll pin that in the comments or the description. Make sure you guys check out Hallman's. There's links to his Instagram and YouTube page. If you don't know how to Google it or search it, that's also will be in the description below. He's got a lot of great content. So if you enjoy my content, you're more than likely going to enjoy Brad's. I don't know. Yeah. So otherwise, yeah, you can search HellaBass anywhere, social media, podcast. You can find it if you want to catch the full replay and listen to this while you're walking the dog or lifting weights or driving to the next tournament or lake. So anything else you want to touch on, Brad, before we head out?
No, I'm surprised 2 hours has gone by, dude. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you having me on today for sure. It's been a good evening to talk about fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to following you. Stay in touch, and hopefully you have a big win, and we can have you back on and talk again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Dude, I appreciate your support too, fan base and everything. That's one of the main reasons I was like, yeah, I'll do it, no problem, because you're always so supportive on all my different channels and platforms, and I do really appreciate that, man, very much.
Yeah, cool. Well, as always, guys, here to help you catch more bass and suck less, and we'll catch you guys next time.